Should FlyQuest start talking about benching players? Should we start talking about whether FlyQuest should bench players? It's getting pretty bad for FlyQuest. I don't think anybody anticipated it getting this bad. We'll jump into that conversation. Cloud9, are they overrated? Everyone had them as pure front runners, and maybe we got ahead of ourselves. We'll talk about whether we think we're overrating them or not. And MVP front runners. There has been some MVP discussions with the summer split going so damn fast. It's time for us to have that discussion as well. Episode 132 of the Clown Fiesta podcast with Blue Jay and JNT250. Jinter, summer is cruising by. We only have 2 weeks left. And yeah, I don't even know what to say. My summer split is my bread and butter is coming and going way too damn fast.
You can blame the negotiations, that 2 week break
I
and all.
know. Technically, it would still be done by this time, though, right? Like without the negotiations, it would just have been like they started so damn early this year.
Yeah, well, I think it was they went from 8 weeks to 6 weeks because it was super week first week and the last week, and then it's just all condensed to perma super week. So
Yeah.
2 weeks left of the regular
Anyways,
season, but playoffs are not too far around the corner.
yeah. We got to start off by talking about TSM. We talked last week about we pretty much flamed TSM for taking out Insanity. They go 3, and we were like, they kind of deserve that. They put them back in, and 3-0. Let's go, JNT250. TSM got the juice. Insanity, player of the week as well.
I mean, absolutely juiced to the maximum. I don't even know what to say. Player of the week, as you mentioned, but it wasn't like a gimme player of the week. It wasn't like, oh, this guy came back and then TSM won all the games. Like, no, he is once again the reason why TSM is winning these games. And the proof is that first game of the week against Immortals. I mean, Immortals not the best opponent, but Insanity smurfing on the own.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, okay, you mentioned Immortals, but they beat NRG. NRG again, not the greatest opponent, but the game against Golden Guardians was pretty good, honestly. And Golden Guardians, obviously one of our better teams in the league. I feel like there needs to be more discussion around that game specifically when talking about TSM because, and yes, Golden Guardians didn't play a perfect game. I understand that, but like, that's a game that I think is worth a lot more than the other two, the Immortals and NRG. If they just beat Immortals and NRG, I feel like there's no real reason to be all that excited about TSM. But I think with the last game of the week, beating Golden Guardians and Insanity looking pretty much good the whole damn weekend, I think TSM fans have a reason to be excited.
Yeah, and I don't think the game against Golden Guardians, you don't chalk it up to Golden Guardians just having a bad game and oh, TSM just ran over them because of a few simple mistakes. No, Golden Guardians, like that was a pretty close game. You know,
Yeah.
Golden Guardians did come out with a little bit of spice with the Zac support there, but I mean, it was working for them early on, and you could sort of see what the game plan was in terms of really utilizing that Zac passive. Similar to, I mean, it's not exactly the same thing as the Scion strat per se, but it's kind of the same thing where you have this body in Zac who can go in and just use his blobs for extra HP in terms of trading for damage or tower hits, whatever it may be. But didn't work out, and I think the credit has to go to TSM because they, they fought back in that game. Golden Guardians came out, had a little bit of a lead, but TSM was step for step behind them the whole way.
It was a back and forth game. And maybe like okay, we acknowledge that we thought TSM was better with Insanity. I think most people were all in agreement there. But like I still would not have had them. What are they? They're 6-6, and that was after the 0-3 when they made the swap. Like
They're 6-3 with Insanity in the lineup.
with this roster, and I have no problem if people say like even if Insanity was in last week, they would have lost some of those games. I myself said the same thing, so I have no problem if people point to that and say like this team is not a 6-3 team, regardless of which mid laner, but they're definitely not as bad as we thought they were. And if it's worth mentioning again, we had them like ninth or 10th. Like everyone had them
Everybody
ninth or
did.
10th, and like now I'm starting to wonder like okay, wait a second, just how far can TSM go? And I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it's worth asking the question because that's not a, I mean, I wouldn't have even thought we were even talking about this 4 weeks ago.
Well, it feels like, at least from my end, like the discussion of who is going to be the important pieces on TSM going into the season, I feel like more of the eyes were on the veterans of this squad, the Haunter, Wild Turtle, Boogie, if you want to throw that in there. And I think people were wondering, well, is Insanity going to be back to the level that he sort of showed in his rookie split, in his first two splits in the LCS, or are we going to see more of the back half of what we saw Insanity in the LCS, in his last year in Immortals where he was struggling pretty massively? And throw Chime in there as well. This guy feels like he's just flying under the radar completely ever since he got into the LCS. He just feels like a good support. He feels like the Treats of NA to me. When Treats was playing in NA, it was like, okay, this guy's actually pretty good support on a not so great team, and he's looking really good. Feels like that's what's going on with Chime right now, and even last year as well.
I hate to be the one to break it to you, but Treats is currently in NA.
Well,
And
still
I
doesn't
get your
ruin
point.
my reference here. Just
I
saying.
totally get your point. I'm just giving you a hard time. And no, it's you're totally right to mention other lanes. Like it's not just Insanity that's doing this. You mentioned Boogie's looking great. Obviously, the bot lane's looking good. There's no world where I thought we would be talking about Wild Turtle actually having really good games. He had, I think, last week was a rough week for Wild Turtle, but most of the summer split he's been pretty solid. We mentioned Chime. We're gonna keep pumping his tires until other people start to catch on that Chime's looking good. I really hope this we don't go this whole split without other people starting to notice Chime as well. And I'm a little afraid that now that we've pumped those tires,
We're
it
caster
might
cursing him a
burst.
bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm a little bit afraid, but honestly, when a guy's playing good, you got to give recognition, right? And I think it's that simple.
Yeah, it's the only, I would argue, the only players that have shown big weaknesses or struggles so far have been the two veterans in Haunter and Wild Turtle. And the bright spots of this TSM lineup has been the young NA players that they have seemed to roll with. And I think everybody's glad that they recognized their mistake in the previous week, substituting Ruby in for Insanity. And, you know, we both called out saying that would, in our opinions, would be a bit of an idiotic move to sub out Insanity when the team seems to be performing so well. But don't get me wrong, I can understand the other side of the argument where you recognize, hey, this is a player that we went out and signed. And according to LS, he said he was talking with Revan because they're good friends. And he still thought that based off of what he saw from Ruby when it came to his VODs of like solo queue and scrims and whatnot, that he was going to be at a similar level. And that wasn't necessarily the case, but you have to, I think, respect Revan for just instantly recognizing the mistake and going right back into it. He didn't feel the need to like, hey, give it another week, see what happens. I think we can flame him for incorrectly taking out Insanity, but I think we also have to correctly recognize that he was quick to put him back in, and the results show for that.
Yeah, there is a world where someone is just so stubborn and they double down on their mistake because they refuse to admit that their decision was incorrect. This doesn't seem to be
Piglet
one of
and
those
Team Liquid.
cases.
That's my always go to when it comes to that stuff.
Which one exactly? Because there was a lot of stuff with
Just
Piglet and Team
just
Liquid.
the fact that he managed to exist in the LCS for 2+ years and he was performing pretty poorly relative to his presumably large contract.
Okay, I thought you were going to mention something about him going mid lane.
No, I
I mean,
just
that kind of does fall under the like we refuse to let go of Piglet. Let's throw him in the mid lane now. I don't know.
I mean, I remember when that whole situation was going on, I was like, Team Liquid is just trolling, keep rolling out Piglet year after year when this guy is clearly not that good.
So last thing I want to mention on TSM before we move on, we kind of brought up the question, but I didn't really answer. I don't even know if you answered it either about like where we're putting TSM now, right? Because we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, right? This is not playoffs. Playoffs is a different animal. But like, where do we got TSM going now after their 6-6 record?
Well, for one, it's a pretty interesting question because you kind of look at it from two different angles. On pure, you look at the team's rosters, you have teams below the standings. You have teams below TSM, NRG, 100 Thieves, and FlyQuest, who on paper should have better rosters than this TSM squad. And I think for the longest time, at least on my end, I was generally thinking that those stronger individual teams were going to ramp up throughout the year and sort of come together as a team and figure out whatever their identity is and get through some of the struggles that they've been having. But that seems to have not happened. And, you look at some of the teams even above TSM in Team Liquid and Dignitas, and I don't think TSM is so far off those two teams either. So considering the fact that they have a couple wins on some of the teams below them, who presumably should be better, and they're equal to some of the teams that are above them, I'm thinking the TSM could probably come in at like fourth place is the highest, the very highest. That's if they play very well, but I'm expecting them to be in that 5-6 range.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo what T. Roy said in the live chat too. Just the first half of his message. T. Roy says TSM will be an easy 5-6 seed for Fly to beat on their rampage through the lower bracket. I absolutely love the what's the word? The optimism. Um, I don't have FlyQuest. I don't have the FlyQuest part of that equation,
Yeah.
but I do think the 5-6 spot is better. Is a good representation of where TSM should kind of sit, which it's crazy. It feels like every time we have good things to say about TSM, we bump them up a little bit more. Because I think a few weeks ago we were like, they're probably like at best a 7. But now we got them in the 5-6 spot. I can't put them in the 4 though. Like that means they would have to catch up to either Cloud9, Evil Geniuses, Golden Guardians, or Team Liquid. I just think TSM is still behind all of those teams, but I can see TSM jumping ahead of Dignitas, or even just Dignitas falling below
That's
them.
kind of why I was at like 4 for the maximum, because there's no way they're catching C9, EG, or Golden Guardians, and technically they're only 2 wins out of third
Yeah.
place, so it's not beyond the imagination, but unlikely. But they're 1 win back from Team Liquid, and I don't know. Team Liquid, as we kind of mentioned last week, they started off 4-0, and what, that makes them 3-5 in their last 8.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I could see them sitting around the same area as 100 Thieves, like both of those teams fighting for the 5-6 spot, I guess. Um, yeah, wild with TSM. We'll have to keep an eye on them and see where that
If they
goes.
can just not be in the lower bracket to start the playoffs, it's a huge win for them.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. Before we move on, we'll remind people, subscribe. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Hit the like button. Comment. We asked you guys. We told you guys how much that stuff helps, and last week it kind of showed. So again, telling you guys that helps a lot with the algorithm. Please make sure to do those things. And this week we're a little bit late on our episode. We did mention it in last episode that was very possible. The best way to get updates on that stuff, guys, is to join our Discord. We have a Discord channel, so there is a Discord link in the description. Yeah, join the Discord. There's a few people chatting as well about the games every once in a while. Recommend joining it, and you'll get updates as to when our episodes are a little bit delayed and whatnot. Blah 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 blah. Next week might be delayed as well.
Yeah.
We've got busy weekends, so there's a lot of reasons why.
It's
There's
the
no reason to get
summertime, people. Come on,
yeah,
like
no reason to get too deep into it, but we're trying our best to get live at 7 o'clock. If you want to join the live show, we try to go set live 7 p.m. East Coast, 4 p.m. West Coast at twitch.tv/Clown Fiesta Podcast. Okay, FlyQuest now. There's already some chat about FlyQuest in the chat. Dude, I mean, you start with this one, Chinter. This is a mess.
I had so much faith in them last week. I mean, I shouldn't say I had so much faith, but I had faith that this team was not going to go 0-3. I mean, they like even a 1-2 would have been somewhat acceptable because it only puts you 1 win behind 7th and 8th place. But FlyQuest is in a bit of an interesting position here because they're sitting at 9th. They're 2 wins out of 7th, 8th place, and with only 6 games left to go, it could be a struggle to get into the playoffs for this team. Like they didn't necessarily have the hardest weekend in terms of like matchups for opponents. What they played: Dignitas, Golden Guardians, and NRG. I think a
100
lot of
Thieves, not NRG.
yes, sorry, but I think a lot of
Yeah.
people view NRG and 100 Thieves in a similar level to FlyQuest right now, at the very least. So those are games that you really need to win if you want to make a playoff push. And I don't think. I mean, I expected them to beat Golden Guardians. I thought they were going to improve, but them losing to Golden Guardians is not a surprise by any means. So I think the more damning evidence is their very lackluster games against Dignitas and 100 Thieves. This whole week was not a good look for this team. It was, I don't want to say it was their worst week, because I think week 1 was probably their worst week, but this was like,
Dude, they're putting up a
it's
lot
another
of
bad
different
0-3.
Yeah, like all of these weeks, there's a lot of contenders for absolutely terrible weeks, and this was just another one. The thing is, I had them going 1-2 this week, so I was not expecting much out of them. I was just expecting them to pick up a win against Dignitas, and they couldn't even do that, man. Back to panic button talk.
I mean, yeah,
We had the
we
panic
should
button
have.
talk after week 1,
Well, here's
and
the
like,
thing. We should
yeah,
have just listened to my advice after the end of week 2, because I said it was totally doomed when then they lost to Dignitas, and then for some reason I didn't follow my own rule. They got me believing again after the 3-0 in week 3, and I should have just listened to myself. Like, and they lost to Dig again. So what am I supposed to do?
that 3-0 was one of the most fake 3-0s, though,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
It wasn't like they went out and smashed all their opponents, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, let's start talking about if it might be too early to start having the discussion about who should be replaced on this team if anyone gets benched, or even next season, because, well, who knows, maybe they do go on a run, maybe they do make playoffs, and maybe we scrap this whole conversation. But at this rate, I think there's a lot of people that are worried about this team making playoffs. You and I are probably both included in that, I presume.
I mean, if I had to pick right now, I would not put FlyQuest in the playoffs. I
They're
would
two
have
wins
them
back.
I
They're
would
two
have
wins
them
back of
finishing
100
ninth.
Thieves. Yeah, they're 2 wins back of 100 Thieves and NRG. Do you have them like, do you think they're better than either of those teams?
No. Well, I
Me
don't
neither.
know if I can say one way or the other. I think you're kind of in a triangle down there, but the problem is that FlyQuest is 2 wins behind them. I don't think that
Yeah.
FlyQuest is any worse than the teams that are in the 6 to 8 range. The problem is the fact that they don't have enough wins, and goes back to one of my points that I always bring up all the time when it comes to teams who struggle. The beginning of the season and picking up wins at the beginning of the season is so important for these kinds of situations. And you're going to see the rewards for that for teams like Dignitas and TSM, teams who we thought weren't very good. They surprised in the first couple weeks. Maybe they got some lucky games as well, yes. But now that they are actually improving and getting a little bit better, we're seeing that improvement as well in their gameplay. Whereas FlyQuest, it's the complete opposite. It feels like things have gone from bad to worse.
I differ from you a little bit in the sense you said that you don't think they're anything worse from, what did you say, like 6 to 8 or something?
Well, I mean, like if I had, if trying to think of the best way to describe it, like if if 100 Thieves and NRG are performing at like a 4 out of 10 right now, FlyQuest only at
Mhm.
like a 3 out of 10. Like they're not that far behind, but
But still worse though, and
it,
that's where I fall on it, is they are still worse, and they have to gain a lot of ground in only 2 weeks. They only got 6 games left, and they have to get, so, like, to me, I think they're missing playoffs, and back to the conversation about the individual players, I think there is a lot of discussion, or there should be a lot of discussion about who deserves to still be on this team. I don't even know what the options are for if they were to bench someone now, but I'm thinking going into next season, there's no way that at this rate that they're keeping Prince, which is wild to say because he was my MVP last split. Vikla, there's no way in hell. He's the most for sure biggest inter on this team. Vikla has got to go. And honestly, I've been pretty disappointed in Spica as well. Like these are guys that this shouldn't even be a conversation. But like none of them are performing to the levels that are expected of them, and they're probably way more expensive than they should be with what performance they're putting out right now.
well,
The
and
only guy that I feel confident in is Vulcan, and even him, he's still not playing at his best. Maybe Impact as well.
FlyQuest, as we know, is one of the teams that spent a lot more this competitive season than the others. You know, a lot of the word coming out of the majority of the North American teams is that they are reducing their budget, whereas FlyQuest seemingly this year increased their budget, maybe because they thought that this year was the year to go for it and they had a good idea how to build their roster. But with a
New
performance like
ownership as
this,
well. They have new ownership. That could be a big thing. You know how there's always a
yep,
bunch of new owners that they want to invest in, blah blah blah, but that could be it
definitely
as well.
important to note that as well. But you look at the they did have a pretty good start to spring split, obviously, and but fell off a cliff towards the end. They have not been able to get on the right track towards summer. So by the looks of it, it would be very hard to justify keeping, more than 2 players from this roster. There's if I had to guess, assuming that FlyQuest, falls out of either doesn't make playoffs, or makes playoffs and falls out relatively quickly, there could easily be a world where 4 out of the 5 players on this team are going to be on a different team next split.
Yeah. We're on pace for a roster blow up right now, which
And
is not
if
what's
I,
supposed to happen.
if I might even suggest, we talk about roster changes right now, Vikla has got to be the prime candidate.
Yeah, for sure.
I will still maintain that I thought he had a decent previous week. I thought he was decent. However,
I don't.
this week was so bad.
Yeah, I think last week we disagreed on that one as well. I just think he's been bad the whole split. And
I mean,
and
he's
he
been
was
bad the
he was
majority of the split for sure.
and even in spring as well. He's just had a bad year. Like to me, there's no way that they run back Vikla. But yeah, it's pretty wild that hashtag bring back Tukoi. Yes. Vapire in the chat. Where is Tukoi? Bring him back. He's
I
on
wonder
one
if
of the
he's still
LFL
on
teams.
that. Yeah, I wonder if he's still on that same LFL team.
Oh god.
What do you even?
An absolute god. What's that? How do you spell Tukoi?
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, let me just look because he put it in the chat.
It,
Yeah, he's still
yeah.
on. He's still on that same Team Go team in the LFL. I want to. I
Man.
want to even see if they're like doing good.
A content god, a rift god. He was a god on and off the rift.
I will definitely admit that guy was pretty funny actually.
I loved Tukoi. Loved him.
Yeah, I
Uh
I I can I can get behind this. Bring back Takui.
last thing, I just want to talk a little bit more about Prince. I still don't know what's wrong with Prince. he to me was the MVP, like I said in spring, and now, regardless of whether he won it or not, he played to the caliber of an MVP, even if it was Berserker that was the MVP. And now we're not even getting that. He is saving Flash for next year. I don't know. He just can't react to anything. It feels like a guy who's rusty. You ever like take like a few weeks off of League and then your first game back, like things just don't feel right? That's what it looks like, except on the LCS stage.
Yeah, and the problem is that can happen on the LCS stage.
Yeah.
And then it's even weird to say with Prince because it's not like he's having these sort of tactical moments or these yawn from spring split moments where, he's playing well, but then is just making these costly mistakes in team fights and losing his team the game. He's just bad all around. He's not good in lane. He's not good out of lane. Seems to be what do you want to call it? Slow when it comes to his reaction times with not flashing key skill shots or not having the best map awareness and presence. But this guy is playing like a bottom tier ADC at the moment.
How often do you even need to talk about a player's reaction time? It feels like that's not something that has to happen, you know? Like that's not ever supposed to be a concern for an AD carry. They're supposed to be like mechanically gifted.
Well, yeah, but then flashback to tactical moments when he was screwing all these things up, not spell shielding Malphite ult and
That's a good
whatever.
point. Okay, that's 1 point to Jinter on that one. That's a very good point. Yeah, okay, so most AD carries, that shouldn't be an issue.
He's got the what do you, I want to put a name to this because like you say a player's got the yips, but like he's got the tactical, but I need like a good way to phrase it.
Hmm. We'll have to put a pin in that one.
Yeah. Well, anyways,
Anyways,
I wanted to get back to a point because we got sidetracked with Takui, but
okay.
I was talking about benching Vikla, and I think one of the benefits that FlyQuest currently has, as opposed to a lot of the other teams in the LCS right now, is they still are investing in their challenger team. And I do want to shout out this guy multiple times over the course of the past year, but Cubby, great guy to follow on Twitter, mostly because I don't watch any of the Challenger League whatsoever, and he usually gives pretty good insight about what players are playing well and what are good players and teams to look out for. And one of the players that he's been talking about for quite a long time now is the Fly Challengers mid lane. What's his name? It's like Spyrax. I think his name is Spyrax. And I just remember seeing his name a few times on a few Cubby tweets. So I'm gonna assume, based on Cubby, because he's the one who's watching those games, that this guy's been performing decently in the NA Challenger scene. And I think at this point you gotta give him a shot to get in there because
Okay.
Vikla is not up to par at all.
So if I'm hearing you right, you're of the opinion that change something, and that's the
Change
biggest problem.
something.
Start with that.
Yeah. I think it would
I
be a
agree.
completely different situation if FlyQuest was not 2 wins down on NRG and 100 Thieves. And we don't want to sound like a broken record here, but we cannot stress the importance of being 2 wins down in a playoff hunt with 6 games to go. Like, you're at a
Yeah.
massive disadvantage. When we were talking about Team Liquid last split, I think everybody recognized that this was a pretty decent team that just couldn't get their shit together in the mid and late game, and they really needed to go on a run in the second half of the spring split to make it into playoffs. Because I still thought at the time that they were a good enough team to make playoffs, but the problem was they had lost too many games in the first part of the round robin to recover. And I think FlyQuest is in that exact same position. So if they try to approach it the same way that TL did, was just we hopefully we can figure it out. They ran
Yeah.
out of time, so you need to do something else.
And what have you got to lose at this point?
Exactly. What have you got to lose? And if you want to
Yeah.
say like the potential of our roster, it's like the potential ain't working out. You know what
Yeah.
roster had potential? The TSM roster, and then they subbed them out, but luckily they got him back in.
Yeah. Anyways,
Actually,
I
okay,
hope that we're.
question for you.
Mhm.
Would Ruby be playing better or worse than
I
Vikla on
was.
this team
Oh
right
my
now?
god. So I'm glad you brought that up because I meant to ask you that like 5 minutes ago and I got distracted by something else. Because I think you may have mentioned this in a past episode, Ginger, that like FlyQuest, or maybe it was a different team, should go after Insanity if they're benching him or something like that. And now, obviously, TSM's not going to give up Insanity anymore. Oh no, it's 100 Thieves. When we didn't know what to think about Quid or Nuke Duck or
Oh
whatever, you
yeah,
were like,
yeah,
maybe they should go after
yeah.
Insanity.
Well,
But
okay, I remember
that's a
talking about that
bummer.
because he'd previously been on 100 Thieves. Yeah, I remember that
It,
now.
yeah, I don't know, man. I, that's a real risky one because Ruby didn't exactly look good in the
I
one
mean,
week that he was in
I
there.
was joking, obviously, but put the
The thing
Spyrex
is,
guy in,
no, but
see what
here's the
happens.
thing. Here's the thing, though, is that I agree with you that something needs to change. And what if your only option was getting Ruby from TSM.
I mean, at that point, I
Maybe
do
he
it.
would do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Which is like, what?
you just
I
they got
feel
to change
crazy.
something. Like something's got to
Yeah.
change.
Anyways, hopefully we're not talking about FlyQuest missing playoffs next week, but I feel like there's a good chance we're going to be talking about it next week and the week after. We'll see. Maybe they go on a miracle run. Golden Guardians.
They
Golden
once again
Guardian.
fumbled the bag when they could have elevated themselves into a tie for first place, but they crucially lost their last game on Friday, which I mean, I don't have their schedule right in front of me, but it feels like they're losing a lot of these Friday games. We'll start off with the 2-0. Everything's looking good. Oh my God, Golden Guardians back. Number one, number two team. Nope, lose the Friday game.
But
GG.
they beat Cloud9 though.
Okay, but they lost to TSM.
We just said TSM actually played good that game. Come on.
I mean, okay, Golden Guardians played well that game. I'm just trolling, but no, Golden Guardians, they're looking pretty good. I mean, I think I was definitely ready to thrust them up there with the likes of Cloud9 because although Cloud9 and EG are still tied in the standings, I still think I'm favoring Cloud9, but I was I was right there. I was at the finish line of, hey, Golden Guardians, you are right there with Cloud9 right now. Like it is 1A, 1B sort of situation, but I got to push them down a slight little bit just because they didn't win that game. But
I
I
mean,
still
that's
think
okay.
I think this team is the number 2 team, despite them being down one game on EG. I would still rank them over Evil Geniuses.
Yeah, me too, but it's close.
I would say it's a very close 1, 2, 3. There is no the margin of separation is very small, and I think I would have no problem with somebody going Golden Guardians, EG Cloud9, EG Golden Guardians Cloud9, Cloud9, like any way you order it, I'm cool with. And I think
I
that's a fair argument.
presume I think a lot of our listeners are going to have EG ahead of Golden Guardians. I'm interested. If people want to leave a comment about that, I'm curious to see what people think about just the top three power ranking and if there's different tiers amongst them. Because I'm sure there's some people that still have Cloud9 as the top tier all by themselves, regardless of how they're playing right now. But that would be interesting to see. Um, I gotta call out my boy Licorice. I don't think Licorice had a really good week. There's it's weird because like the one play specifically against Cloud9, like he played really well to stay alive, but then he went back in for more and died. Like it's plays like that where it's like I don't want him to stop playing like that, but I could still acknowledge like that's a mistake and that like you're kind of inting. And he died 1v1 in lane quite a bit as well. Not the greatest weekend out of Licorice, but I'm I'm not saying he's sliding back into spring licorice. No, I'm not there yet. God, I hope not. But I didn't think he had a particularly great weekend. And I think if he actually starts to play like he had been at the start of this split and at MSI and whatnot, then I really feel a lot more comfortable having this team ahead of Evil Geniuses.
I once again must tip my cap to the GOAT River J4 performance, although
Oh God, yeah.
he still is not taking perfectly timed stopwatch.
Who
That's
gives a fuck?
That's a free 350 gold. Buy that shit on Jarvan. It is so much better than free ass boots. Don't at
But
me.
he's a beast. Who cares?
He could have been better. That's all I'm saying. There was room
That
for
game,
improvement.
he kind of won the game
Oh, I
against
mean,
Cloud9.
River just ran the show. I mean, we'll get to the
Yeah,
Cloud9 side of things, not too not too long, but it was almost a perfect game from River.
yeah.
There is literally nothing that you can say that he did not do correctly.
I also I guess so I totally agree on the River point, and I should have also thrown Huhi a little bit of flame or criticism, if you will, as well, not just Licorice, because the Zac game, even though things started off well, he kind of had a few int moments as well with some tower dives. There was a few times where he's diving tower and his bloblets are just sitting there at the end after they don't kill anything.
Yeah.
Um, I love the Zac pick. Don't get me wrong, I'm a Zac stan. I was fucking hyped. Who he's playing Zac. I think the execution could have been a little bit better.
Yeah,
Uh,
I could see what they were going for, but you could sort of see it fall off a little bit in the mid game, especially when Zach engage tends to be very predictable. So
I
once you have the means to escape the Zach engage, he's just a sitting duck waiting to die, especially low economy support.
And I think that you're going to get some hiccups when you're playing random champions that I'm sure he doesn't have a shit ton of games on all of these new picks that he's always bringing it, right? Like who he is someone that just plays a bunch of random crap. There's no way he can have a million games on all of them. So I feel like these champions are probably a little bit under practiced, and that's kind of the price you pay for picking new stuff. You get a lot of things that the other team isn't ready for, but you're probably going to have a few hiccups when you play them. So I have no problem with that. I think that's part of the trade-off for keeping the other team on their toes during draft.
100%.
But I still think the execution could have been a little bit better. So a little bit of bean soup award for him to throw for that throwback.
I didn't actually look it up, but I wonder if that was who he's first ever Zach game.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm
Are
gonna.
people banning Set against him? Because that was one of his classics.
It was his first Zach game. I don't
Mm.
know. Are people banning set? Let's see. Um, no, I don't see any of that. If they
Uh,
were, I'd have to assume it would only be on like the second phase ban if they haven't picked support, but
hmm.
I
My
don't see any here.
last thing I want to say on Golden Guardians is Stixay had another like game-winning team fight on the Aphelios. I don't even remember who that was against. It was that dragon in the river. Who was that against?
Oh, nine.
Oh, is that that game?
Yeah.
I thought it was a different one. Anyways, another game-winning team fight on the Aphelios. Like he's had like 3 or 4 of those.
Oh wait, sorry, no, it
Just
was against FlyQuest. I don't even know why I said that. It was against Fly.
okay.
When
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because they Prince and Vulcan were off on the side, and he just like flashes in a flash Gale Force in on them. Yeah,
How
yeah.
many of
Sorry,
those has he
that was
had this
FlyQuest.
split?
He's
Where,
the guy with the killer instinct, bro. That's
yeah,
he's got that dog in him.
I'll say. Kind of looking like a beast. So that's been pretty good because I think the start of his split wasn't so good. So I think he's gotten better as the split has gone on.
Hmm. They're
Anyways,
definitely Golden Guardians is feels like the power is being drained from Licorice slightly, and it's getting back into the bot lane.
yeah, they're beasting.
Hmm.
Yeah. What do you think of my 12 win prediction now? Still, eh?
Well, what they're eight
They
and
gotta go. They
four.
gotta go 4-2 in the next 2 weeks.
I mean, yeah, I think they can do it. I mean, I guess
Hmm.
they already. I mean, considering this was the first week of the second round robin, they don't have to play Cloud9. And although I think everybody would have normally said that a matchup against FlyQuest would be difficult-ish, but they beat them. So the only hard teams they have to face are presumably EG and Team
Hmm.
Liquid. So the 4-2 is the 12 wins is looking on the cards right now.
Yeah, and they beat
Big props
Liquid
to
in their
you.
last game. The
Well,
thing
there you
is,
go.
though, no, you can't do that. You can't say props to me yet. You're jinxing because they can never go above 9 wins.
And I
I
don't know
guess
what to
I
tell you.
jinxed them for bringing it up. Actually, this is kind of on me,
We are going to be
but they'll
sitting
do it.
there with the last game of the season when they're at 11 wins with bated breath.
Dude, I'm afraid of them being at 9 wins on the last game of the season, and they just go 9-9
Ah, they
because
can't.
I keep bringing.
Surely they can't int the split at the end of the regular season exactly like they did last split. No way
I
that
hate you.
happens.
I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. Okay. All right, they're going 12 wins. Perfect. After Golden Guardians, Cloud9.
You know, they're
Okay.
still 9-3, but it feels like this is the week where they should realize that they can't really coast anymore. They got to they got to get it together a little bit because yeah, it's pretty difficult to judge whether or not they are experimenting because they have said in a couple interviews that they are, but I mean at the same time they're still playing relatively meta champions and just getting outplayed simply, especially in that Golden Guardians game. I mean, again, we're not the guys who always talk about draft and be like, "Oh my god, draft lost in the game," but the fact that they drafted Renekton top, Annie mid, which is like the hey, we want to pick jungler, fight a lot early pre-6, and then they pick Viego, who is still kind of like a scaling jungler for the most part. Like, for you to be slamming Renekton Annie, I'm expecting you to pick some sort of Maokai Sejuani type thing. But, I mean, Golden Guardians just simply outplayed them.
My concern with Cloud9 is that some of the mistakes that we've seen them make in the past are continuing to happen. Even against Immortals, they're taking fights that they just don't have the numbers. That is one of the
That's the
biggest
horny
problems that
Cloud9.
yeah, like they just want to fight and they have to fight. And god damn it, if they don't fight, they're gonna lose their goddamn minds. Well, they end up dying when they take 4v5s, even against like Immortals, for example. Like Immortals should not be winning team fights against Cloud9. Like there's just no world where that should happen, and it's happening. And so that's where I kind of wonder if these mistakes keep happening, did we all, us and the community all together, did we kind of overrate Cloud9? Because I'm in the yes boat as far as like, even though I think they're still probably our best team still, I had them far and away our best team. And as the weeks go on, I'm losing a little bit of faith that they are the hands down best team.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me at least, I definitely think we overrated them a little bit, and it has to come down individually a little bit. 'Cause M&S and Fudge are not playing as well as they were in previous splits.
Even
Spring
Berserker, I
split,
would say last split was better. Like Berserker got caught a few times in that Immortals game.
I'd still, I don't know, I still rate Berserker pretty highly. So definitely a bit of a drop off because he's not smurfing the entire league, but he's still the best player on the team, probably. But Fudge and M&S were all pro level players. Fudge by far and away the best top in spring, carry machine, absolutely destroying everybody in the reverse Cassante various matchups, whether he was playing Cassante or the guy playing Jax Fiora, winning every matchup, destroying everybody in lane on Jace, didn't even matter. And this split, he is comfortably in the bottom half of top laners in the league, I'd say. He is his laning is not as good, and maybe that has something to do with the champions that he's playing because he does seem to be on Renekton duty, and maybe
Renekton's
that's.
good though.
I
Like I
mean,
think Renekton's strong right now.
yeah, it is.
Except when he goes up against Rumble though. We've seen some Rumbles absolutely stomp Renektons.
Yeah, ignite cap.
Other than that though, Renekton seems pretty good right now. And like Renekton is a champion I think I should have full faith in Fudge being able to execute.
Yeah, it's just funny because he was not on. He was playing mid lane. That one split though, where Renekton was like the premier top pick. Like that was when Summit was
Mhm.
all over that. That
Yeah.
split, like Fudge has not really been playing when Renekton has been super meta. Feel like it felt like when he came into Cloud9, that was the beginning of season 11. Season 10 was all Renekton, and then season 12 spring all Renekton, but Fudge is playing mid lane, and then now we're back to. I just wonder if he has a lot of practice on that champion because every OG top laner in the LCS is going to have no problem playing that. I just wonder. Sitting here just thinking about it right now.
I'm gonna ask you a question, and everyone keep in mind that J&T is a Cloud9 fan, so take this answer with a grain of salt. Do you think their chances of winning the split are above 50%? Do you think it's more likely they win or the field?
Above 50%?
Yeah,
Tough to say.
I'm
Probably.
taking the field. I'm taking the field. I think.
I think I would, but I think that's mostly because as it stands right now, I don't see any other team that is not Cloud9, Golden Guardians, or Evil Geniuses even being able to contend with those three teams for the most part.
The thing too that you can't forget is TL might like APA's been hyped up a lot, and we'll get to them in a second, but like APA might be a big enough upgrade to Team Liquid with how many games Harry was just hard throwing, right? So
That's
maybe
true.
even them you throw into the mix of like they could go on a run and like Core's been looking good. Like Cloud9 has a few teams that could contest them. They're still
I
my
think
pick.
you've convinced me. So yeah,
They're still my pick to win the split, but I just think their chances of winning the split are like, I don't know, 40% to some random number rather than the
yeah, it's probably more
50
to what
plus.
you're saying. Then it's pretty hard to justify giving Cloud9 somewhere around 50 and then two to three other teams 25 or less. So
Yeah.
I think mathematically it'd be pretty hard to argue that they'd be
Strange how
they'd be
we've
the full
lost a little bit
favorite.
of faith. We've
I
lost a
mean,
little bit of faith in Cloud9, I think.
for sure, and I think that you know part of it has to do with the fact that their solo laners aren't playing as well as they did in spring, and the other part of it is that I don't think anyone was expecting EG to be a contender. EG seems to have sort of replaced FlyQuest as that other team that was supposed to be vying for the top three, and yeah,
I know us so well though. Like here's what's going to happen, okay? Playoffs is going to come around and Cloud9's going to like stomp their first series. They're going to 3-0 or something, and then we're going to be like, "Okay, yeah, Cloud9's winning it all, 75%." Like we're going to flop so quick. We're going to swing right back over to the other side.
maybe.
We'll see.
I think a
Uh
lot of that probably hinges on your Golden Guardians 12 wins prediction.
mm.
Because if they go into the gutter in the last 2 weeks of the regular season, it would be pretty hard to convince me that then Cloud9 doesn't have greater than a 50% chance. Because I think Golden Guardians, as I mentioned, is that team on their ass basically.
Okay. Is there anything else on Cloud9 or should we start talking about their competitors?
Um, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Step it up, you weirdos. Like, come on. What is this?
Blabber still looks pretty good.
He's a beast.
I'll talk about Blabber in a little bit. There's a little of a spoiler. I got more things to say on Blabber because we got an MVP discussion later. Um, EG, their the first competitor to Cloud9, if you will, since they're at the top of the standings. Uh, I don't know, man. People are gonna think that we're just fucking revenge haters on this podcast.
I'm not saying it
I,
this time. You got to say it.
I didn't I say it last time?
Oh, I did.
I, I don't think Revenge had a good week. I think he got hard gapped in 2 of the games, maybe 3. I'm trying to remember all of them now. They played against Dig. Didn't he get solo killed by
Yep.
and then 100 Thieves? He got solo killed in that one, didn't he? Didn't Someday kill him?
Yep.
Did he get solo killed in all 3 games?
I'm pretty sure.
Or just NRG, he got hard stomped in like CS or something. He had like 110 CS at 20 minutes or something.
I mean, that's basically a solo. That's like 2 solo kills over 100 CS.
Yeah.
So, to
But
answer
the
your
thing
question,
is,
yes.
I promise you, listeners, I promise we want him to do well. Everyone's going to think we're revenge haters. I just don't see it, man. I think that EG is winning some of their games in spite of him losing lane. He got the Fiora counter pick and he just got solo killed with it. He's not really putting any pressure out with Fiora. Like that's what you want. You want to be able to split and have the team like pull a lot of pressure towards your lane. Didn't really happen. I don't know, man.
And I guess, I mean, I think to maybe give you guys some understanding on why we're a little bit hesitant with when it comes to revenge is because of I don't know, just kind of because of the fact that you do see some of these top laners in the LCS that can take over games. Like, it would not surprise me at all to see in a Cloud9 versus EG matchup, Fudge just absolutely smack Revenge over. And I think when we kind of look at the blueprint of top teams and what you kind of want when it comes to a top team to contend for a title or potentially go to Worlds, you want all of your players to be very strong, especially in lane. Because when you're a weak laner, that is something that can be exposed extremely hard at the upper end of the league. And if you take it you take a team to international tournaments, and Revenge, we can't call him bad or anything. Like, it's not like he's having a poor split and he's playing horrible by any means, but he is definitely not at the same level of his teammates. I think the 3 guys that are the notable guys in EG to talk about, and it's hard to not talk about them, is Armeo, Jojopune, and Unforgiven. Unforgiven is another player who I feel like is kind of flying under the radar. It just is a really solid, stable AD carry. He feels like the FBI of last split. Like, nobody was talking about FBI because he was just doing a really good job and wasn't really making mistakes, wasn't making those flashy plays per se, but he's just doing his job really, really well.
I 100% agree. I think Unforgiven had a really good week, and I think that's a really good representation, like FBI last split. Um, Actually, an EG AD carry as well,
Yeah.
coincidentally. Um, yeah, I feel bad talking about Revenge in that way because he's so outspoken about how he wants to prove himself and how like he was just being held back by Immortals and everyone's jumping on board, and I can't get there, not yet, anyways.
Well, and I mean, I think if you compare his performances from Immortals to EG and just strictly look at, by the numbers, he's playing better, sure, but
Still an upgrade for
he
sure.
he doesn't have that influence over a game that I think we expect from some of the top players in the league. Whatever team you're on, when you look at a team like Cloud9, you know that Berserker can 1v9 the game if given the opportunity. You know that Blabber can 1v9 the game from the jungle. When you look at Golden Guardians, we're watching Stixxay week after week make these game-winning plays to push Golden Guardians over the edge in some of these super close games because Golden Guardians had a lot of, mid to late, team fighting type games, and feels like we don't see that from Revenge. He doesn't have that presence as a player where he demands attention both from his own team and from the opposing team. It's just he's kind of there. The enemy team, they can easily implement a game plan to pressure Revenged and really shut him down, and EG just doesn't. They don't feel like they play around top at all, and I don't think that's the fault of the team. I think they're playing to their strengths, which is what they should do. But as you get later into the season, teams will expose your weaknesses, and as it stands, Revenge is a decent weakness on this team.
Yeah. Well,
But
and
not to
to
flame
kind of
him,
what
he's not bad by any means. He's just kind of average. Like, he's just kind of average, and that's not necessarily what I'm looking for on a top team. And sometimes you can say it's unrealistic to have 5 amazing players in every single role, and maybe you do have that one guy who's not up to par but just does his job well. And I just don't think that he's I don't know, just he's not
I
passing the eye
get you.
test for me. It's hard to say, but he's not passing the eye test.
I get you. I want to go. You kind of made me think about something when you're talking about JoJo and Unforgiven. There's an argument to be had that like why even give Revenge the counter pick when you could play around the two guys that are absolutely stomping when you put resources into them. Like JoJo's had a great split. He's another guy that'll be in the MVP discussions. Unforgiven was fantastic on the Zaya. That guy's been dishing out damage, let me tell you. And so, like, I don't even see there to being a reason to necessarily focus on giving Revenge the counter pick, whether he can perform on it or not. It feels like they have two other tools that are far more reliable that you can play through, which is like a really good thing, right? Like that's one of the reasons why they've had such a good record so far this split. Is those two are showing up.
Just to give everybody maybe a little bit better of an understanding of what I'm talking about is kind of look at 100 Thieves of the previous split, where Tenacity wasn't necessarily a limited player, but the team was limited in the sense that they could only play this one way and have this one style. And I think there is some truth to that with the Evil Geniuses squad, where they can only play to certain styles, or at the very least, their different styles that may be more revenge focused aren't nearly as strong as playing for JoJo or Unforgiven, for example.
Okay. And then the other one of the other possible contenders, we'll have to wait and see with what Team Liquid does. Team Liquid just making a swap in the middle of the week, obviously. Uh it seemed like the announcement was that Harry is stepping down, but I think we're all on the same page here that I don't even know if I want to say it's like possible. I want to say it's likely that the team wanted him to step down.
Yeah, so
What do you think
in
about
in
that?
his own post on Twitter, the language that he used in his tweet was "I'll be stepping down." But in
Yeah.
the interview that APA did with Degon, I believe it was, I mean, I'm kind of assuming it was after their first match, he sort of phrased it as, the coaching staff approached him after the previous game. And
Mm.
who knows, maybe Harry had that discussion with the coaching staff beforehand and that was the case and he was just got the call up. But it's vague, but I'm gonna lean on the side of he got benched as opposed to he stepped down.
Okay. I think me too, but regardless, we can't even know for sure, so maybe I shouldn't even have jumped into that. The point is, he absolutely sprinted that game against NRG. That is one of the biggest int games we've seen in quite some time. That I don't know how to say it. The loss was on him. Like everyone made mistakes, sure, but he made really game losing mistakes. Uh And the thing is, it's not the first time that we've seen him throw games. That's why I felt bad for him. It's like he just can't get over this hurdle of keeping a lead for the team. And I think the team probably got fed up and said, "Look, I would rather play with a guy who can't speak Korean, like we can't even have a conversation, than play with Harry because we just don't have faith in that player." And once you lose faith in a player, it will change the way you play. Are you going to want to gank mid if you think those resources are just going to be inted away later? Like you're kind of handicapped. It's like a mental handicap on your jungler or on your support roaming mid. It's like you probably start thinking, is it even worth me making the quote unquote correct play, knowing that it'll be putting resources into this player that I don't think it's worth putting into.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned the mistakes that he's making, but you compare Harry's performances in summer to spring, and then you get a player like Jan, who was making very similar mistakes to Harry in the spring split, but Jan seems to have corrected a lot of those. I mean, I could count, I could count probably five, at least five instances of Jan screwing up badly in the spring split, which was very costly for Team Liquid and either lost them a game or shifted the game state massively. And I can't even think of one right now from this split. There probably is one, but you look at the Harry side of things, and it's still pretty similar. He was making mistakes in the spring split. He's continued to make mistakes in the summer split, and I think the change was warranted. And it is important to note, as you mentioned, APA said in that same interview that the team is still speaking Korean, pretty
Yeah.
much. He said it's 90% Korean, 10% English. So presumably, Yan or Core JJ is doing some form of translation there. So kind of
Yeah. And
kind of
like,
further amplifies your point of like clearly Harry must have been struggling if they're willing to sort of uproot this whole style that they've somewhat commit. I shouldn't say their whole style, but it's part of their style that they've committed to wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and like Rain says in the chat, he says he just looks better than Harry. And yeah, it's a 2 game sample size, but he's right. He does look better than Harry, like miles ahead of Harry. And we'll have to see if communication issues are a problem because it's honestly, we mentioned before how like, hey, TL's looking better with Harry now, and like they could actually contest Cloud9 as and go on a run, but like maybe we haven't even gotten to the communication issues and those start to creep up as the split goes on. Like maybe TL starts to look worse, but for now, they're looking a hell of a lot better. And also he plays Zig, so that's kind of beast too.
I think we're in a similar situation where APA is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
He played well enough to ensure that he remains the starter for the foreseeable future.
What an awesome debut, right? Like the Tristana, he's hopping around, he's getting kills, and then the Ziggs, he's bursting people. Mind you, I don't really think the Ziggs game was about Ziggs. I think they were kind of winning all over the place. But still, that was fucking awesome. I was really happy for him. Obviously, everyone's probably sad for Harry. You hate to see a player have to either get benched or bench himself. Regardless, it's not good. But at least he gets some good out of it with an NA talent who's been talked about for quite some time. That's another player that Cubby's been on about APA for some time, saying
I
this
remember
guy
asking
deserves a top.
him about him when he was on our episode beginning of the year.
Yeah, and there's an Insanity interview with Travis that I don't know if it's out yet. It's like it's on his YouTube channel for like members or whatever. Shout out to whoever the hell gifted me that membership. But he said like he thinks APA should have been playing in the league as well for some time. So lots of people basically have faith in APA. Now we're going kind of getting to see why they had faith. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh, Core JJ also. I think that Thresh game was so weird because it was like this was not like a playmaking landing hooks all over the place Thresh game. This was a I'm in the right place at the right time, continuing to save people with the lanterns Thresh gameplay, which is like don't get me wrong, that's great. It's just not what we're used to out of Core JJ. Normally he's that engage guy, that guy that's making the pick. It was just a different version of Core JJ Thresh, and it was great.
That game was. Did you like listen to the full game on that? Like, because that was the game that had Sven on the cast after. I thought Sven did a pretty good job of giving some sort of insight, especially to the early part of the laning phase. I mean, Sven basically described the entire game in the first 5 minutes of the game, where Nautilus went for W level 1 and it's supposed to be good for trading, but if the Thresh is good, he backs off and then re-engages when the shield and the damage goes down. And literally, Sven called exactly what happened in the lane. So just props to Sven on that cast. It was really good, really insightful, and the game was over within 10 minutes that game against 100 Thieves.
I know this is supposed to be a TL segment, but like, can we just talk about how Sven is the MVP of like players doing content? That guy is an absolute beast. And even the Cloud9 segment where like they had the whole players there and they had all of them, he got griefed by his teammates. Like, I don't expect M&S or Berserker, like English is not their first language. I don't expect them to be able to answer a bunch of questions. Fudge dropped the ball. This guy does a bunch of content. I thought that segment should have been so good. I thought the idea was so good. I thought Sven got trolled.
Then can be the I'm supposed to say the broadcast MVP, but he's like,
MVP, most valuable play by play. Yep.
sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
Either way, it,
He,
it was funny seeing him on the broadcast. He's always good, especially the interview with Core JJ afterwards, where
yeah.
he didn't have any questions and was just winging it on stage.
Yeah, that was hilarious. That interview was so good. Like subtle flame, that was perfect.
Yeah,
Last guy for me to talk about with TL is Summit. I think he is having like quietly having a really good split. He absolutely stomped with Rumble. We talked about how Rumble is kind of stomping on Renekton's, but I feel like there's a lot of like it's I don't want to say ignored, but I think his performances have kind of been missed with how many games they're throwing. It's like the talk of the town is not how Summit's having a great top lane performance throughout the split. It's about how they're losing all these leads. And so I kind of feel like Summit deserves a little bit more praise because I think he's had a good split.
yeah, he's right up there with Rich. I'd say a number one top.
He was their win con in the game against that they threw against NRG, except they just could not stop dying. Harry specifically, but a few of them just kept getting caught.
Yeah,
And Summit was like, "Guys, I will win this game. Just let me split and just don't die." And they obviously they couldn't not
yeah. Classic. You type to your
die.
team, play safe, don't die.
Yeah,
And then they all fucking die.
the classic. Guys, please don't fight. That is a solo queue classic. Who's next, Jinter? I'm lost on my list here.
We got Dignitas. They're sitting at the 6-6. Went 1-2 in the past week, but honestly, I think I will continue my praises from last week, where I genuinely think that this team is actually getting better, and I think a lot of it does have to do with Santorin figuring out how to play in the early game, and we have revamped Jensen.
I wish you hated them still. I loved
I
it so much
mean,
more when you hated Dignitas, man.
I can still hate Diamond all I want, and he's horrible.
Dude, their bot lane was actually really bad. Like their bot lane's just been. It's not just Diamond. They are dying in like I don't know. Like I should have been keeping. Well, not should have. I wish I would have kept track of like how many times that bot lane has died in lane. I feel like probably like 80% of their games they've died in lane. Like not just Diamond, Tomo as well. Like they're not like this is sneaky in lane, but dig bot in lane. And the thing is, it's kind of so last split,
I'm
all the
coping and throwing all
discussion
the blame on Diamond. I don't care.
all the last split, it was like, oh, Dignitas is being held back by their bot lane. Like their top side of the map is playing okay. If they just had a bot lane, like they would maybe be competitive in some of their games. And it feels like we've slowly started to sink back into that. And I wanted to give praise to Tomo because he did have some good team fights in the last couple of weeks as well. But like, what does it matter when you're just losing all of these lanes and you're falling so far behind? Like it's back to spring split where it's like Dignitas needs a bot lane again.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. It definitely does feel like the performance has swung a bit from Tomo. The power from Tomo is getting sapped from Santorin and Jensen.
How did we get back here?
Just, I
I
don't know,
feel like
keeps
I've
happening.
become you. Like I'm the one flaming Dignitas now.
Well, I mean, I'm not. They didn't have a good week by any means. Like, it's not like they had. I thought they had a good week despite going 1-2. Like, this team is still not the best, but they're definitely not as bad as I once thought. And I think a lot of it does have to do with Santorin and Jensen playing a lot better. As simple as that. I will still urge people to go back and watch the first 6 games of Dignitas and see how awful Santorin was in the early game. I mean, just straight awful. They're playing better now. Straight up.
A lot of the talk about Dig, even in the chat, is about them going to Worlds because of the Jensen thing. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the narrative.
I
I
mean,
just think
I'm
this
there
team.
for it.
I think this team is going 7th or 8th. I think they're going right to the bottom bracket. Maybe they could win a series. Who could I see them winning a
Wait,
series
but you
against?
mean but you say 7th, 8th. Do you mean they're gonna finish the regular season 7th, 8th, or they're gonna
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
eliminated in playoffs in 7th, 8th?
Well, maybe that as well. I'm trying to think if I could see them beating anyone
Well,
in a
but
best of 5.
I guess my question is, you are expecting one of 100 Thieves or NRG to leapfrog them by the end of the split?
Yes.
I can get
Yeah.
behind that as well. I don't know who the hell I'd
They're
pick
1 win
because
behind.
I can't trust NRG, and I tried to put my faith in 100 Thieves last week, and that backfired on me massively.
I'm just looking at who Dig plays. Oh, they still have a game against Immortal, but they lose to Immortals every fucking time.
Maybe this will be the time.
Honestly, the Dig schedule is not even that
Well,
tough.
we'll get into this a little bit later, but we want Dignitas to win that game against Immortals. We need that.
Hmm.
You don't come on. They got to keep
Oh
that
yeah,
loss
yeah,
streak going.
yeah, 100%. True, true, true. Yes, yes, yes. I almost forgot. I almost forgot about the loss streak. No, okay. Look,
I have
I
to
think
join you on the Dig Immortals side of things for the next match.
yeah, Dig is 6-6 right now. They got 100 Thieves and NRG both at 5 and 7 behind them. Yeah, I think they could definitely lose the 1 win lead that they have over them. Start off in the lower bracket, and I could also see them losing in their first series in the lower bracket as well. Yeah. Not good.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
I
good.
still don't necessarily rate this team that highly, but I do think that they are better than the 9th, 10th place prediction that I had them in to begin.
Fair, but yeah. I guess yeah.
7 and 8 is better than 9 and 10. 7th to 8th is better than 9th to 10th. So
Confirmed. Uh let's talk about the new Jensen. Jensen 2.0. Now he's playing Jason Tristan all of a sudden. Do you like Jensen on these new AD mid picks? Or do you prefer Jensen on the classic Azir, Oriana, LeBlanc?
well, first of all, I'm going to reminisce and be a bit of a salty C9 fan right now because when Jensen was on C9 for Season 8, when we went to Worlds and it became all about flex pick mid laners, pick Akali, Irelia, Jensen didn't even know how to play that shit. The dude, like, he didn't know how to play it, and then he goes to Team Liquid, and then he knows how to play it and everything, and Comes back to Cloud9, completely reverts to being a control mage player, and now he's on Dig and he's playing Tristana Jace. Like, what's going on? Like, does Jensen just only play control mages on C9 or what's up?
I'm conflicted. He got a penta.
Yeah, he got a penta.
Like I know I'm being baited.
It
Like,
was kind of
oh,
a lame
he got,
penta, in all honesty. Like, it wasn't.
okay. How in the world does the observer miss the pentakill?
Yeah,
By the way,
because
how do you miss that? They had a quadra. He's chasing him for a mile. The fucking observer misses it. Like you could
maybe,
tell on the minimap that what's his name gave it to him.
yeah, Speak It
But
just sort of gave up.
don't miss the pentakill, observer. Come on. But it was still a pentakill.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't boring. Like, it wasn't like a Zeri pentakill moment. We were like, oh, Zeri pentakill, but it wasn't like a hype pentakill. It was like just a drawn out pentakill that was an inevitability.
But you know what? Pentakills are back in the LCS. We've had a lot of them lately. Even FBI got one this week on the Jinx at like 13 minutes. By the way,
Yeah.
pentakills are fucking fun. Like
But I mean,
it's
you get
crazy
what I'm
because
saying
Zeri
though. Like,
ruined them for so long.
you get what I'm saying though, because like pentas are more hype when the team fight just kind of ends within like 10 seconds, and it's like, oh, big team fight, white pentacle. But it was like he got a double kill, and then they're chasing down somebody in the river. Then he gets the triple, and then he has to chase the next guy all the way down mid lane for like 2 towers worth of distance, and then he runs all the way bot lane for the penta. So it was like, okay, is he gonna like? Everybody knew he was gonna get the penta if he got to Speaker, so it didn't have that like hype moment in it. So I don't
You're
know.
right.
It was a lame penta.
You're right that like it's not as fun as the clean penta in a team fight. You're right, but I will say that pentas that like that penta that just happened, they have always existed, right? Those have always been a thing where like one guy has to run a mile to hunt him down.
I'm thinking of
And
like
maybe
the a Jensen penta on like Malzahar from season 7, where I think he got
oh
the
yeah.
last kill with the void, like the space aids.
Yeah,
I don't
with
even know what
space
you add.
aids. Yeah.
What is even the ability called? I play Malzahar. I should know this.
It's
Malefic
called space
visions.
aids.
Malefic visions. But it spreads
Call
all the
it
way
space
down the
aids.
minions, and then he got it, the last kill there.
What did you say? What is it called?
Malefic visions, I'm pretty sure.
Boring. Space aids.
Now I have to look it up to confirm. Now
Anyways,
I'm nervous. I don't know if I got it right now.
okay, you let us know with that. Anyways, I
I got it
even
right.
though I'm such a sucker for pentakills, I think Jensen on the Azir and the Orianna is the better version of Jensen. I am surprised that he's playing the Tristan and the Jace, even though his performances haven't been terrible. I just think he's so much more valuable to a team on the Azir Orianna. I will say his LeBlanc isn't like season 6, 7, 8. Jensen LeBlanc was kind of goaded. I don't think he's there anymore on that particular pick, but
And it's like a different play style with the static shiv and whatnot.
yeah, I think that you're gonna get the best out of him on the control mages. But I'm be more than happy to be proven wrong if he pops off on more Jace games or Tristana or whatever it
Here's
is.
what I will say about that though. If the control mage version of Jensen is what makes Santorin so AFK in the early game, I don't want to see old Jensen. I want to see new Jensen. If it's new Jensen, Jensen 2.0 is what's unlocking Santorin to actually do work in the early game, because Jensen has a strong-ish early game champion, then give me more of that, because by no means do I want to see the first 6 games Dignitas. I want to see the most recent 6 games of Dignitas.
Okay, I can get behind what you're putting down there. I can get behind that. Uh anything else on Dig? Trying to think if there was anything else that I
Nope.
wanted to
I've already
mention.
moved on. We're talking about energy
Okay.
now. But the problem is, what the hell do we even say about this team? Because
I'm breaking up with them.
one week they're looking
Divorce.
good. Another week they're inting their faces off.
They went 2-1 this week, but I'm breaking up with them for sure. We're no
Did
longer
they?
in love.
They went 2-1.
Yeah.
I thought they
Yeah,
went 1 and
because
2.
no, TL threw. Harry
Oh yeah, yeah.
gifted them the game. What else did they play? It's here somewhere. Team Liquid, TSM. TSM just straight up beat
Yeah,
them,
and then they
and
smacked
EG.
EG.
I know they smacked EG, and don't get me wrong, I want to get excited for it, but I can't like. This team has just not been good. Even last week, I had faith in them. I was like, this team's gonna go 9-9. They're gonna come back. No, we're broken up. I'm mad at them right now. I'm like that. I'm that girlfriend that's like being overly dramatic and like, what have you done for me lately? That kind of yeah, that's my relationship with NRG right now.
I mean, they're just wildly inconsistent, so it always feels difficult to rate this team on a week by week basis. I said it last week, the CLG in them still remains. They have not, they need to like exercise their CLG demons of just their week to week performances being so weird. It's funny. I didn't even realize. I mean, obviously they went 2-1, but it didn't feel like a good 2-1 because
Not
they
at all.
struggled so much in the Team Liquid game. And as you mentioned, they kind of got the game thrown to them. And in the even earlier parts of the season, you really got to call out these teams that are kind of getting wins thrown to them. Like it's sure you're winning. It's good that you're winning. You have wins, but doesn't really do a whole lot in terms of confidence for your future performances.
But then they beat EG. Like, I
I
man,
can see the internal battle that you have going on right now.
I need to break up with them because we have this on and off relationship,
It's
and
a toxic
I
relationship.
can't handle it anymore. Yeah. The only way they'll make me fall in love again is if they beat Cloud9 again,
I mean, I think I said this
which
a
could
couple weeks
happen, by the
ago.
way.
I think I said this a couple weeks ago, but contracts is they are the B plus version of Cloud9 in many ways. The main one being that if Contracts does not have a good game, this team really struggles. I mean, Contracts is such a huge influence for creating stability for the team because it feels like, at least on when I'm watching CL or NRG, when Contracts is not necessarily having a big influence in the early game and it's strictly on the laners to just lane, they are often losing out. And it's normally Contracts who has to sort of get them back in the game or sort of make that one play that will either get them the lead or get them back into the game. And kind of they're like I don't know. They're like the Contracts is like the reverse Santorin right now. Like,
And Rain in the chat says contracts is at the center of inconsistency.
yeah, I mean,
And
that's true.
100%. And what's funny is that they're very consistently living or dying by contracts. That's the consistency that they do have, is that they're totally inconsistent because of contracts. Try to figure out that knot of logic. I I just want contracts to go back to like Wukong, Vi. His Poppy is still great. Put him on the Poppy, no problem there. I don't want to see him play. He played like Scion last week or something, a
Yeah,
few weeks ago.
he had the Scion game. Well, they
What
won
is
that
that?
game though. Yeah, no, wait, did they win that game? It
I
was
don't
against
know, but it didn't look good. I don't know. I don't
No,
think they
they
did.
didn't win that game because it was against Santorin, and I remember Santorin had a shite early game where he was down on CS to a Scion jungle, and they still won that game somehow. Sorry,
They put
Santorin's
him on
catching it all.
Ivern. Ivern's really strong right now, so I'm a little bit torn on that one too. But it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like that's how CLG is going to win games by contracts just sitting back and shielding people with Ivern. Like he's supposed to be the guy that is the go button, and I don't. Scion does not count as a go button. It's not reliable enough. It's too slow. Same thing with Maokai. That's not a reliable go button. I'm talking Vi, Wukong. Get contracts on that shit and watch this team be much better. And I'll give them another chance if they beat Cloud9. I'll fall in love
Mhm.
again. Like, also, everyone knows that like the first breakup never actually takes. So like this is just getting my first breakup with them out of the
Oh,
way
got
so
you.
that when they lose to Immortals, we're through. That's my yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's. I kind of mentioned when we were talking about FlyQuest that I kind of have NRG 100 Thieves FlyQuest sort of grouped in that tier, and I think NRG is probably the best of those teams in that sort of tier, but their inconsistency is really what makes it difficult for me to push this team above those because game to game, week to week, it is so different.
It's interesting at least. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what the hell I'm going to get out of the game when I'm watching NRG. So I'll give them that.
Here's what I'll say. Let's get some NRG split. Where's the Yone pick at? Like that was like their bread and butter flex pick in the spring split. Like where'd that thing go?
Do you want it on Palafox or on Dokla?
It's a flex pick. That's what they were
Well,
doing in
yes, it's a
spring. Like,
flex pick, but generally there should be one guy that you have more faith in it, no?
oh, whoever has the better matchup. I don't know.
Okay.
They
So
both.
you don't
I
care at
thought
all. You
they.
think
Well, I
they
thought they
both
both played it well. Like
okay.
it was pretty decent from the both of them.
I'm team Palafox if I'm giving somebody the Yone, but I get your point. You're saying you don't care who takes it as long as they get a good matchup with it. You have faith in either one of them executing on it. I have a little more
Palafox.
faith in Palafox, I think.
Palafox feels like the only guy who is consistently good on this team. His performance does not vary too much. and he's continuing to be a pretty solid mid in the LCS. Yeah, I will I'll eat my words, and I thought that he was going to be one of the guys that I thought that CLG/NRG should have replaced going into this year, but they didn't do that. They stuck with them, and they are he's performing well.
And he's proven people wrong.
Yeah,
Last thing for me is Dokla. He didn't have a good week. He is free kills. Just gank that guy. He'll die.
he's back to Optic Dokla.
I know.
Like the season 8 summer Optic Dokla, where he wasn't popping off in spring with like Yorick and crap, and then he just was inting in the side lane on repeat. That's kind of what's happening right now.
And the thing is, when he has a bad game, he's like so sad too. Oh
They
God, I hate
always,
those players.
whenever
Yeah,
the
dude,
NRG loss hits, and they go zoom in on Dokla's face.
dude, the cameraman hates him or something. They're
Dude,
like, "Oh my God, they lost. Where's Dokla? Let me find Dokla and let me just shove a camera on his face for like a minute."
the joke in the
They
Medio
love,
Sneaky Coast stream is that, the Dokla fucked the camera guy's mom or something, so he
yeah,
always has to point the camera on him when they
yeah.
lose. But I
Poor
mean,
Dokla.
Dokla, he's kind of going like bang mode with these post game reactions.
He's hard on himself though. I always like I can appreciate a guy that is like, yes, I'm fucking up a lot and I'm doing this mistake, that mistake, this mistake. I appreciate a lot of the guys that are like owning their mistakes. Unfortunately, he's got a lot of them to own lately. But
Yeah.
hopefully Dokla turns it around
I
rather.
don't have the numbers in front of me, but if I had to guess, he's probably one of the leading candidates for like most deaths a game.
ISO deaths or just deaths in general?
I don't know. Well, here, I'll as we transition, I'll figure that out. I'll pull some stats up.
Yeah.
Anyway, 100 Thieves next. They're tied with NRG in the standings at 5-7 at the moment. But similar to a lot of these, teams who we thought were going to be higher up in the summer split, they have some pretty glaring issues. And similar to FlyQuest, the mid lane is an issue for 100 Thieves. I think that people were willing to forgive Quid for his mistakes in the first week of LCS, kind of citing that it's your first week, some nerves might be playing a bit of a factor and whatever. But ever since then, over the last 6 games, things have not been going much better. He's still quite problematic.
Yeah. The thing is, I thought like just get him on Azir, that's where he's comfortable. And his Azir kind of looked pretty bad too. So like I thought that they found something that they could put him on and have comfort and be like and just a reliable pick. We'll put him on Azir, no problem. People don't really ban Azir that much, and we'll be fine. I think I was wrong about that. I think that he's a liability. I'll just be blunt.
Yeah, and I mean, Ryan says in the live chat, like, he should be allowed to make mistakes. I totally think that's fair, but I think that he is making consistent mistakes in almost every single game that we've seen so far.
Costly
He,
ones
he has
too.
had, I think, one like clean game so far over like a 9-game span.
Hmm.
But I will also agree with your second point about how maybe it has something to do with, the team playstyle and closer, maybe not benefiting as much from it being a carry jungle type meta.
Yeah. So Rain's saying closer, however, should go back on Wukong or similar jungles.
It's
I think
hard
I agree
because
with that.
I
I
would
think I
definitely
agree.
agree with that, but apart from Wukong, there's not really, his champions are not necessarily super in the meta. I mean, Viego is kind of sparse, but you really have to fit it in certain comps and
He
doesn't
was a really good Lee
necessarily.
Sin player. Lee
Yeah,
Sin.
but where the hell's Lee Sin? Like, nobody's
I,
playing
I
that
feel
champion
like
right now.
I feel like Lee Sin's one of those champions that could always be pulled out. No.
I mean, yes, I agree, but I think in that sense, when it does get pulled out, it is at that time like a relatively strong champion, and we're not even seeing players like a Santorin or a Blabber or your typical Lee Sin players in the LCS pick it up. So, and we're not even
Yeah.
seeing it that much around the world. Like in LEC, the only person I can think of who's ever played Lee Sin this split has been Malrang. And maybe there's like the odd owner Lee Sin game in the LCK, but I don't recall seeing a lot of Lee Sin in LCK.
Canyon.
LPL is a different question because I don't watch that region, and with the fighting style, maybe there's more Lee Sin picking going on over there. But
Something's telling me that I watched Canyon play Lee Sin lately. Although the thing is, like, Canyon
East
closer,
Canyon,
these are not. Yeah, I shouldn't even be considering closer in comparison to Canyon. Regardless, I think that I agree that I don't like what closer is playing. He doesn't seem to be comfortable when they put him on shit like Maokai, for example. But anyway, I think the Lee Sin would be fine. I uh I guess the other small issue, I think Busio looked kind of rough this week. I think mostly he's had a pretty good split, and I think he's improved a lot as the year has gone on. I was pretty disappointed with where they got dove. Who did they get dove by? When he was on Rel, and he kind of fucked up that play really bad. Do you know what I'm talking about? It was a
Um,
really early game dive, but I don't remember what team it was against.
was that against?
Is it Fly?
Was it? I'm
Maybe
trying
it
to
was
think.
BG.
I gotta pull
I
up
can't
the.
know. I don't know.
If I
I
see
just
the post game if I see the Game of Legends game, it'll come to me. It always
he used
happens.
his stun before anyone even took tower aggro, and then he used his crash down into the tower, and like it was pretty rough looking. But I
Yeah,
guess those are like
that was the game against FlyQuest.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that was like ugh, Busio. I feel like you can do better than that, but maybe I'm being a little picky holding that play against him. That was just one that really stood out, like because yeah, it looked pretty bad.
Also, I checked on the most deaths statistic, and while Dokla is not number one, the number one person does not surprise me whatsoever. It's
Wait. Ah, okay. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed Diamond. I wouldn't have
Okay.
guessed it.
It's
I
Diamond,
wouldn't
and
have.
that makes complete sense.
It does.
Dokla's like fifth.
Hmm.
The only people that are ahead of him are supports and junglers. Actually, that's a lie. And Vikla. It's Vikla
Oof.
and supports and junglers. So it's the engagers and then Vikla
I
and then
probably
Dokla.
would have gone with Vikla or like tactical or something as most deaths. What else can I say about 100 Thieves? Honestly,
Doublelift
I think
still
some
playing
days started
well.
to look better. Yeah, Double is still playing well. I think Top is looking a lot better. Some days starting to play a lot better. I just think they're still a little bit lacking in the mid jungle department, which is usually not a recipe for success.
Yeah, and once again, surprising considering how high I think the majority of the league, how everybody feels about Closer. I think everybody thinks that this guy is one of the top junglers in the league and not too far off the pace of guys like Blabber.
Hmm. Should we talk about Immortals, or do you have more on 100?
Um, and they're kind of in a similar situation as to last split where they're having a bit of a shaky early going, and at this point they're kind of counting on some sort of surge in the second half to, make any meaningful playoff push, at least to improve their seeding, because they are one win behind the likes of Dignitas and TSM, but NRG is in that group as well, so they could finish anywhere between 8 and 5 at this point. Really, like there's a very large range this team can go in.
I don't have them going very far in playoffs at the moment.
Me neither. I would have to see massive improvements from Quid and maybe some just in general better team play with regards to Closer.
I think best case they finish
Fifth, I'd say.
yeah, fifth best case. And then who would they play against? They would have to play against a fourth seed.
A TSM oh yeah, you're right.
They would
Yeah, I
have to play
guess
against like TL, Golden Guardians, EG, maybe Cloud9 if Cloud9 falls off a little bit. They're not beating any of those teams. And then they would go to bottom bracket, and maybe they could win a bottom bracket series if they play against like I don't know NRG or something.
it's difficult because there's so many teams that the seeding from 4 to 8 is going to be very interesting. I think
Yeah,
1, 2, 3 seems fairly locked up, but I think 4 to 8 it's 2 wins between all those teams. It's a very
they've got a
close
little ways
middle
to
of the
go.
pack.
They've got a little ways to go. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. But I think to
Immortals.
say like a lot of these teams in the middle of the pack do. I think there's tons of improvements for a lot of these teams, and maybe it only takes one team getting it right to surge up in the standings.
True. True. Let's talk about Immortals making a push for the biggest loss streak, or to tie the biggest loss streak, as per JNT 250 research.
Yeah, so we had to look this up to see what was the longest losing streak in LCS history. And the one that I guess the two teams that came to mind were both of these teams went 1-17. Team Coast in spring 2015 went 1-17, and then Echo Fox went 1-17. And Echo Fox, their win was in like the middle of the season, so they didn't have like a big loss streak. But Team Coast won their second game of the season, and proceeded to lose the next 16 games of the season to finish 1-17. And Immortals are kind of in a similar boat right now. They won their first two games in the split, but they have lost the last 10 in a row. So
This week they got 100 Thieves, Golden Guardians, and then Dig. And I
that's
remember
that's the game right there.
when we first started talking about their loss streak, we said this week is their last chance to win against TSM because we didn't think TSM was all that great. I think our opinions have changed there. But we thought they have to beat TSM or they're going to lose all the way up until Dignitas.
Yeah.
And even against Dig, I still think I'm going to have Dig coming out on top in that one. And so, like, I don't know, man. They're running out of time to pick up a win. This streak could go all the way to 16 in a row. I don't think it's going to happen. I'll put that out there. I don't think
So they're
like
going to
they're
beat Dig?
bad. They're bad. I just think they're going to win one of their next 6 games. I don't think they're going to lose 16 in a row.
Would it
They're
Okay,
bad. I don't think they're that bad.
let me ask you a question then. I don't know when they play Golden Guardians per se, but let's say if if Golden Guardians is playing Immortals, and if Golden Guardians wins, they reach their 12 win mark that you set for them. But, obviously Immortals has to win to break the loss streak. So would you rather Immortals break the loss streak and not tie for the worst loss streak in LCS history, or have your Golden Guardians reach your 12 wins prediction?
So wait, you're asking, sorry, I was just distracted for a sec. You're
Oh,
asking me,
Golden
would I rather
Guardians,
Golden Guardians get 12 wins or would I rather Immortals lose 16 in a row?
yes.
Oh, I'd rather Golden Guardians get 12 wins.
Yeah, I'm
I don't have the hate in me. Don't get me wrong. There are times where I could be a hater. I just usually I can't. I think it would be hilarious to watch this team lose 16 games in a row. I just think I really want Golden Guardians to break the 9-win curse, as Ryan's saying in the chat, but also smash it. I want Hoohee and Licorice. I want them all to just pop off. That's where my loyalty or whatever is. But I'll admit that it will be funny. Honestly, you know why? I want them to lose at least 15 in a row so that everyone is paying attention to their very last game. Like, I want people to be hyped to watch an Immortals game because if they're about to lose 16 in a row, everyone's going to be like, I got to watch this Immortals game, which no one has ever said in their lifetime.
I'm just checking to see when that game against Immortals is. Oh, they're playing them this week, so it's not your
Who?
dream scenario where it's going to be the last game of the split. But no, I'm just
Yeah.
checking when Golden Guardians plays Immortals because
Oh, that would have been good.
yeah,
Yeah.
if it was
The
the
last
very
game.
last game and it was like if they win, they break the 9 wins or yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we'll be following the Immortals loss streak till the end of the split, but I'll throw them a small bone here for their gameplay this week because I thought that this was at least a better week. It was bad, but it wasn't as bad as previous weeks. I thought in the Cloud9 game they actually did a lot of good things in it. But I also recognize that I think Cloud9 was equally doing some bad things, like taking a few disadvantaged fights. But I did think that Immortals in that game actually did a really good job for the most part in terms of setting up their engage and kind of executing the engage. Now, they didn't necessarily always pick the best spots for that because the main turning point of that game was when Immortals went really deep on a tier 1 mid lane tower dive and Cloud9 kind of just cleaned it up. But I at least thought that what I saw from the gameplay this week was slightly better. Not great, obviously, because you still go 0-3. But if we want to compare this 0-3 week to the previous two 0-3 weeks, it was the best of those.
There's some very small things to hang on to, and I think you kind of touched on it there, that like they're having some competitive fights against Cloud9. Now, like you said, they still went 0-3. That fucking sucks. So you're really grasping at straws here to cope.
I got to give them
uh
something, just a little bit.
I'll give them a little something else, and I think I might have said this before, but I'm gonna reiterate. I still think last split's Immortals was worse than this one. I can't let go.
I I agree. I mean,
But this is the team that's going on the massive loss streak, though.
what
Maybe it's just
was
because last split they had Dignitas there to help them pick up a couple of wins.
yeah? Because what Immortals was 4-14 at the end of last split, and two of those
Yeah,
wins
like
were against Dig.
the other bottom, like last split it was Immortals and Dignitas, the two bottom of the barrel teams, and now this split it's Immortals and FlyQuest. I think this FlyQuest team, as bad as they are, is not as bad as the Dignitas from last split. So like, there's not those free wins that they get to pick up every once in a while.
Yeah, they. I mean, we'll have to see though, because they have been beating Dignitas in these matchups. So That
Okay, back
that
to my pessimism now.
that's the marquee game right there.
My pessimistic side of things is that we got exactly what we wanted out of Immortals. Do you know where I'm going with this, Jinter, or no?
Not yet, I guess.
What did we ask of them? We wanted them to do something. Do you remember?
Oh, I don't. What did we
We
ask of
wanted
them?
them to play Vel'Koz or Zoe, and we
Oh,
got
okay.
it.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I remember talking about it. Yeah,
We
yeah.
got it, and they fucking sucked anyways.
Yeah.
That doesn't bode well.
I mean, Balulu was still decent on the Vel'Koz. Like it wasn't all bad,
Really?
but
He
I mean,
got destroyed, no?
I don't know if he got destroyed per se.
I think his Zoe was a little bit better, but even that still wasn't.
I mean, I don't know. I just think their bot side is obviously decent in lane, and I mean, we've always said that I think for tactical that he's always been a good laning AD carry, but once the lane phase ends, it's not always the greatest. But for me, the real problems with this team lie in the top side. Kenvi and Solo are not playing very well right now. I think everybody recognized that Solo deserved to stay in the LCS with his play on
Mhm.
TSM, despite the really horrible game that got him benched, where he basically threw the game. But he has not been looking up to par, and it's probably going to be another situation where Solo hides for a year until a team needs a top laner and picks him back up. So I'm expecting Solo to go into hibernation after this split, or who knows, maybe in the middle of the split. And I feel bad bringing this guy up constantly, but Kenvi is just simply not LCS level. He is not LCS material. Feels bad to give up on some form of a young NA player, but I hopefully this guy could get on a Challenger League team if possible. I don't know how hard it's going to be now with the changes to the Challenger League scene, whether or not more LCS teams are going to get involved next year, or even if the three that are currently still in the league pull out by 2024. So
Maybe
he needs a reset, or at least he needs to not
maybe
be on
the
Immortals.
maybe the path to LCS for Kenvi is just like the new norm of like Dokla, for example, where like there's no the path to LCS used to be, oh, you do well in academy and then you get promoted and then you play in the LCS. No, 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 no. You gotta flip flop back and forth like Insanity and Dokla and contracts. You gotta go to the LCS, get clapped, get sent back down, and then come back to the LCS and pray you're not on Immortals. And then we'll be talking about how Kenvi was overlooked just like even like Revenge once he leaves Immortals, like, oh yeah, he was being held back. And
I
that's the path to pro for LCS players.
I can see it, but I think I'll also harken back to our rule that we set out. If you're a young player, don't join Immortals. Just don't. Just just
God, we've been
don't.
saying that for a while now, eh?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's rough now because one of the reasons why we said that in the first place was because there was the option to go join a top academy or challenger league program from one of the better LCS teams like a Cloud9 or a CLG at the time or Golden Guardians teams who've continually had very good academy challenger league programs, but maybe not an option anymore.
Do you think this is the last split we see of Tactical?
I mean, surely, right? Like,
We
has
thought
to
that
be.
before this year. We couldn't believe he was on a team. No offense, but
Yeah, but Treats was like the savior that Treats saved his career
yeah,
basically. So
we don't know. We think
we're
Treats was like, this guy's got potential, like let me work with him. And then Treats was like, oh shit, I didn't know. I didn't know
yeah.
it got this bad.
But I mean, to be fair to Tactical a little bit, Treats hasn't been the greatest sub necessarily either. So
True, true. When we say this all the time, but it's true. When you're on a bad team and things are going bad, it's hard to look good. So like, it's like that for everyone, but you could also still acknowledge that everyone has a part to play in the failure, right? Like all of them are struggling, and it's hard to be around other people that are struggling as well. It's like exponential growth of struggle.
yeah,
Uh, let's have the MVP discussion.
yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like this is the most interesting MVP race that we have in the last few years. Because I mean, I'm trying to think of. I mean, last split we obviously had sort of the two runaways in Berserker and Prince. Prince got out to the early lead because of how dominant FlyQuest was, and Berserker was pretty close behind. Ended up being pretty close between Berserker, Blabber, and Prince by the end of things. But it has felt like over the last. I mean, maybe I would say the last interesting MVP race would have been the time when Spica won MVP when we thought it should have been closer, and that was a year and a half ago. And apart from that, LCS MVP normally is not that interesting because there is a runaway favorite like a Core JJ or, a double if you're a Bjergsen in years past or nowadays a Blabber. So the fact that I
Yeah.
think there are a lot of names that you could throw out there for the MVP race is a very good thing. And for me, like I got about 4 to 5 players in my race still with 2 weeks to go.
Okay, let me try to think of some of them. JoJo's on there, yeah.
Yep.
Is Blabber on there?
Yep.
Rich.
Yep.
And he said 4 or 5. Is it 4 or 5?
Well, I put Berserker in there.
Okay, I would not put Berserker in there,
And
me
I'd
personally.
also put Insanity in there.
That's funny because I was thinking about Insanity, but like even though I want to get behind the hype. So is this one of those arguments where it's like valuable to their team sort of thing,
I
or
mean,
just you straight up think he is the best player in the league or one of?
it's the discussion that you have to have. And I think it's part of what makes the MVP very nuanced. And I think more often than not, we kind of do default to just the best player in the league. But I'm not saying by any means that Insanity is my number one favorite as of right now. But if we do want to take it from more of the approach of, the MVP, the most valuable player to a team, that is Insanity right now.
I have never been a fan of the most valuable player to their team sort of argument. I just think straight up, you should just I that me personally, this is a me thing. Who's the best player in the league? That to me is the reason why the award exists.
Yeah, but
It's not
can
a
I put? Can
hey,
I ask a question or pose some sort of a
of
scenario?
course you can. Yeah,
So
feed me.
TSM is 6-6 right now. Let's say
Mhm.
TSM finishes 10-8, which would put Insanity's LCS record this split, 11-3. 11. Am I mathing that correctly?
Where what?
If if TSM goes 4-2 in their next, what the hell am I doing? 4-2, dude. I can't do math right now. What's going on?
They have 6 games left. If they go 4 and 2, they finish 10 and
Yeah, 10 and
they have
8.
6 wins, right?
But
Yeah,
I'm just
10 and 8.
what am I? I'm trying to add up the number of wins that Insanity has. So that would be, I guess, to all of them because he has all 10 wins. But 10, okay, 10 and
He would be
5.
10 and 5. Yeah.
I figured it out. 10-5. He'd be 10 and
Okay.
5 and is the carry of the team. Like what the top team, the top teams in Cloud9 potentially is Cloud9's going to finish what 13, 14 wins. Like that is 10-5 is not far off the pace of the number one seed if you're the carry of the team.
Sure, but I can't give all of the praise to Insanity. As much as I love Insanity and much as I think he's been great, like Boogie has had a good split. Maybe not the greatest week, honestly. He did Inta and Maokai a couple of times, but he's had a good split. Turtles actually, he had one bad week as well, but I think Turtles been okay. Chime's been good. Like this is very much a team effort to me. As much as I think Insanity may have been their best player or one of their best players, perhaps. I'm not like he is 1v9 hard carrying this team. So I don't know if I could give him if I could weight it that heavily towards Insanity.
I mean, like I said, he's not my leading candidate by any means, but you approach the conversation from a couple different perspectives and scenarios, and I think he's right up in there.
I will admit it did cross my mind. I still don't have him in the running, but it did cross my mind the thought of Insanity.
I can't
Uh
believe that I couldn't do math for about 2 seconds there. Like
I didn't even know what the hell math you were trying to do.
I was just trying to add up the number of wins that Insanity had at the end of the split if they had
I
10
got you
wins,
now.
but I just remembered the fact that, oh yeah, they didn't win a single game without him. So
Yeah, I got you. Um to me it is between the three of Rich, Jojo and Blabber.
I'm in
I
that boat
actually
as well if I had to pick the top three right now.
And it's hard to go one way or another because like I mentioned to you a few weeks ago, I think that Armeo actually has played really, really well with JoJo. The only reason why I don't have Armeo as one of the contenders is because I think JoJo has been better than Armeo, even if just a little bit, which automatically, if JoJo's the best player on his team, how would Armeo ever be the MVP, right? Like, so that was easy. That's why it's easy for me to cross Armeo off the list. It's not that he's not deserving of being in the discussion, it's that somebody on his team is more deserving of being in the discussion. Um, they've all had like their kind of int moments. Like they've all had a couple of games, or maybe just one game for Blabber. I don't know, where like they've had a little bit of hiccups, and so that's why it's not like so easy for me to
Well,
pick one.
that's what makes it interesting is in the case of last split with Berserker and Prince, they were just so clearly ahead of everybody else making minimal mistakes. getting what Prince was how many kills was Prince averaging in the first like 6 games of the split? It was like at least over 10. He had like
So
he had
many. Yeah.
14 he had 14 plus kills in multiple games early on in the split. So
Yeah.
I think especially in this situation where we don't where not everybody's playing perfect, it makes it a lot more interesting.
You know what else I think is going to happen? I think that everyone is so used to saying, "Oh, well, Blabber's just on the best team, so like he gets a bunch of help from his teammate." But we've even said his teammates have not had the greatest splits, like Fudge
Yeah.
and M&S, for example. Like I feel like this is one of those splits where you should look at Blabber as being the hard carry for Cloud9. I know you have Berserker in there. I don't think Berserker's had that great of a split. Obviously, he's still having a good split, just not MVP worthy for me. So like I think that Blabber might need a little bit more recognition than he would normally get because of the whole, well, he's on cloud nine. Like that conversation's going to go up, and I don't think it applies to this particular split.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say because I do think that Rich falls a little bit into the similar insanity category, but it's also not the same because, in my opinion, Rich has been the best top laner, so it makes it a lot easier from that standpoint. But I think when you look at how your team affects your performance, and in the case of Blabber, where we're expecting his teammates to all be so fantastic that people can argue that it just makes it easier for Blabber, but that's why I think you need to talk about players like Rich and Insanity who are on middle of the pack teams, but
Yeah,
the majority of their wins are coming from, the individual player.
yeah. No, I get where you're coming from. I think I would go with Blabber, honestly.
Just Rain in the chat says, what about EG? Yes, JoJo, but what about Unforgiven?
I don't think Unforgiven has been like he had a really good week. I don't think that he's been that solid the whole split long, even though he's had a great split.
I think
To me, it kind of goes back to the same thing that I said about Armeo. It's like I just have JoJo ahead of him. So it's like if I have somebody on his team ahead of him, how could I be considering him for the MVP? I think
also,
that's
I
the thing
think
there.
there may be a smidgen of recency bias in there because we cannot forget how hard JoJo was smurfing the beginning of the split. Basically,
Yeah.
up until the game that they played against Cloud9, where they got destroyed in 24 minutes, JoJo was 1v9ing almost every game.
With our three guys that we got, like I can think of all of them absolutely popping. Like Rich was the Cassante, that was kind of insane, especially when he like hard stomped Summit. He's
Yep.
hard stomped Summit's Gnar, and then Blabber on like the Kindred. My God, man, that could look out when Blabber gets fed on Kindred, and then JoJo. I
Dude,
mean,
I go back to
he,
that first Gragas game he played, where it was like he just destroyed him.
yeah. Anyways, I have to admit that I don't have a firm opinion because I could see a world where all three of them are. But I think those are the three for me to keep my eye on the last 2 weeks of the split. That doesn't mean you ignore everyone else, right? Like, let's say Unforgiven does have like five 1v9 performances in the next 6 games. Then I think obviously he could push himself into that conversation. But for now, I just got those three guys, the Rich, Blabber, and JoJo. Uh, and I think right now I'm going with Blabber.
I think if I had to pick
It's
right
tough.
now, I'd also go with Blabber, which
Hmm.
would put him at 4 MVPs, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know how many Bjergsen and Doublelift and Core JJ would have gotten over the years, but I can't imagine that it is too many more than 4.
Blabber is starting to push himself into the conversation of GOAT.
He's
Uh,
getting there. I think
no
he
one's going to put him above Bjergsen or Doublelift yet, or at least I don't think people are going to put them above Doublelift or Bjergsen yet. But if he continues, he might get there. I could see it.
I mean, if we're assuming the same longevity, he's going to get there.
Yeah.
If we're assuming that he's going to play almost 10 years like both Bjergsen and Doublelift did, he's going to get, 6+ championships. That is not a question to me. I think more of it is he'll probably need some international results to push over the nostalgia of Bjergsen and Doublelift. But
Although
a conversation
Bjergsen
for
didn't
another day.
exactly Bjergsen didn't exactly perform on the international stage.
No, but I mean just the domestic dominance. Blabber
Yeah.
does have a lot of domestic dominance, but in his Bjergsen was on another level back in season
And
4, season 5.
international performances are what North American fans are hungry for, right? Like if let's say Cloud9 did go on a run and they make it to like semis again, I feel like that would help Blabber's MVP stock a lot.
100%.
Or not MVP, GOAT stock a lot. So yeah, that's a fair point. Okay, so we're both going with Blabber for now, but it's an extremely tight race.
Yep.
Oh, we got to talk about Faker.
Aw, man, the GOAT. What's going on? That was I think everybody was hoping that this day wouldn't come. I think everybody was assuming that the day that Faker was no longer going to be playing for T1 for an extended period of time, it was going to be because of military, like required military service, which I think everybody at this point is assuming is going to get waived for Faker because that guy's just like a
Yeah.
celebrity icon. So,
Whether he's got a bad wrist or not, like
yeah.
you're not putting Faker out there and like
But he's going
if
he's
you go
going
to war.
Uzi mode right now.
Yeah.
Sucks.
I don't know what to say other than I'm worried. Like what fuck, right?
I guess we should say for people not in the know, we did talk about it briefly last week, but last week on the day of when we were recording the podcast, it came out that Faker was experiencing some wrist and arm pain in his right arm. And then some more details this week came out about that after their Nongshim match that I believe happened about 5 to 6 days ago. Faker apparently couldn't lift his right arm like above his side. He couldn't even lift his arm to put it on the table because of how much pain it was in. So there was a bunch of people noting that his arm was just hanging limp on his right side while he was doing everything with his left hand. And then very shortly after, T1 released a statement that Faker was going to be taking a temporary break. Did not explicitly say how long the break was going to be. It only, in the Korean statement that came out, said a few weeks. The English statement didn't say that, but it's presumed that he's going to try to get back before the end of the regular season to ramp up for playoffs. But they have
Look, I'm not a doctor and I'm not there with them. I think if he's only out for a few weeks, I think you're hard trolling. I think you're risking way too much to put him in 3 weeks. He can't lift his arm and you're going to put him in just 3 weeks. Like, I don't think that's enough time for that shit to heal if he can't lift his arm.
well, I don't know if
What
it's
do
like
I
a
know,
I
right?
don't know if
Like,
it's
I
a
don't.
constant thing where he can't lift his arm, but it was just in that moment after the 3-game series that they played against Nongshim. So
That shit's got me worried, man. I don't know.
yeah, I
You
mean
can't fuck around with anybody's wrist like that, let alone the goat. Like, let that shit heal. Who cares if you lose your seeding in playoffs? Like, this is way too valuable to anyway.
yeah, people are very worried about T1, even if they're going to make Worlds, because they weren't necessarily playing the best pre this Faker injury. Maybe his injury is part of the reason why they haven't been playing as well, but I think they're sitting at 4th in the LCK standings right now. I don't know when the next match they're playing, but they recently played against DRX, which was one of the bottom teams in the league, and got absolutely smack daddied by them. I watched that series, and it was a pretty sad sight. But no flame to Poby, the backup mid laner. This guy is like 17. I looked up on the Reddit post. It said, dude was born in 2006. Like, dude is green as fuck. Like, there is no way that this guy was going to be able to replace what Faker was going to do. There was like a little bit of speculation that they might play Carrier mid and play their challenger support
Yeah.
in place of Carrier, and maybe that could still happen if T1 continues to lose games. But yeah,
Monka esque,
not the
man.
greatest
Monka.
for one, Faker's long-term career, and two, T1's world's opportunities this year, because there's a number of strong teams in the LCK right now. Your
Yep.
boys, KT.
KT. Let's go, baby.
Hamwa's in the middle, like
Damwon not as strong as I would like them to be.
yeah.
Kana has not been very good.
I
I've
will
been, I've
say
been
though,
watching DK and KT pretty
despite
much.
being a Hama Life fan, I would still I don't want to see T1 not go to Worlds, because like Hama Life ends up being the 4th place team. Like, I want to see Faker at Worlds. Dude has got to win one more time before he retires. It has to happen. I don't care.
Will you cheer for KT with me?
I mean, if I'm not cheering for T1 or Hama, sure. Or Damwon. So you're like, KT is 4th in line of the LCK teams that I might cheer for.
Good to know. Bengi's also resigning, or he resigned rather, as the coach
Yeah,
of
that
T1.
was pretty surprising. Happened a few days ago. T1 put out another statement shortly after the Faker injury one. I believe it was like the day after their match against DRX, where they got smacked, where Bengi announced that he was stepping down as head coach and that Tom was going to be his replacement. OG Tom, if anybody remembers that guy, was subbing in for Bengi way back in the day. I can't remember if he was before or after Blank, when Blank was the sub jungler for T1. I don't remember exactly, but he he was one of those guys. Oh, dude. Yeah, he was playing when Pyrian got subbed in for Faker as well, whenever the hell that season was. That was when Pyrian and Tom were going off or something. Tom played a bunch of Sejuani, poor writer Sejuani. Shout out Tom. I remember that guy. I remember
I don't
some
know.
old LCK.
I don't remember jack shit about this, so I don't really have anything to add. Just interesting though that coach resigns.
I mean, all of T1's coaches are basically former players that used to play on the team. So
Should we just go through the rest of quick news? This feels like a quick news topic.
yeah, I guess kind of. We got a lot of quick news to go through. So
Yeah, let's just do the rest of quick news and then we'll do predictions at the end.
well, I guess I'll keep this on the eastern side of things because there was an update from the Chinese Asia Games roster, which you talked about not too long ago, and apparently both 369 and Jackie Love withdrew due to injuries that they've been having and want to sort of take that extra time before after summer before Worlds to take a break. So the new roster for China is Bin, JJ/Jun, Knight, Elk, and Mako. So a lot of BLG representation after their MSI performance and the fact that they're sitting number 2 in the standings right now.
Dude, we got some freaking health issues going on.
Well, and I mean, it's pretty safe to assume that Faker's probably going to have to drop out of the Asia Games at this point because
Yeah,
he was listed on the Korean roster with Chovy as the backup. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that Chovy's going to be playing and not Faker.
yeah, that's a good point. What else?
Um, yeah, I'll just flip over to EU before we go back to NA. But Astralis is fielding offers for their LEC spot, and BlixGG did an article all about this. That apparently Team Falcons, which is owned by it's a Saudi Arabian based organization, their purchase of the spot was denied by Riot, which I'm just gonna have to assume has something to do with the fact that Riot probably doesn't agree with the majority of what comes out of Saudi Arabia. Pretty safe to say,
Taking
I'd have to
Saudi
assume.
money is a bold move for a esports uh
Well,
business.
I mean, there was this whole drama back in 2018, 2019, whatever it was, when the LEC took on. I guess it would have had to have been 2019 when the LEC was going to take on a sponsor that was Saudi based.
It was that long ago?
It was 2019. I'm very sure of that now.
I can't believe it was that long ago, but I do remember it though.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, obviously, like not exactly most well known for human rights. Yeah, I don't like I'm not surprised.
But they've also said that one team that's in talks to purchase a spot is quote unquote a big ERL team. So draw whatever assumptions you can make from there. I think everybody's assuming that that name is probably Karambin Corp. They've expressed interest in buying multiple other slots over the course of the past 2 years. This team probably has more viewers than 7 of the teams in the LEC anyway. So them joining the league would only be a bonus.
I think it would be cool. The one thing that I will say, like, I don't even think this is an absolute deterrent, but when there was first rumors about them looking into joining the LEC, I remember Travis Gafford made a pretty good point that like, why would this organization want to join when it costs way less money to run the team that they're running in ERLs and they're making a shit ton of money doing it? That could be a reason that keeps them out of LEC. Personally, I think that they want to go after being a legit LEC org and try to grow from there. So I don't think it will deter them, but I do remember Travis making that point, and I was like, okay, that's kind of fair. I could see them not wanting to for that reason. But
Yeah.
when you hear big ERL team, that's you think of K Corp.
Yeah. I mean, definitely understandable, but I think at the same time, you look at a team or an org like K Corp, if they're in the LEC in 2024, they instantly become one of the premier teams in that league. The premier
Yeah.
teams in the LEC are Fnatic, G2. You throw in sort of Koi and Mad Lions in there because those teams are always high up in the standings. But Karmine Corp is a huge org, which is going to have pull to sign big free agents. So I would expect them to, if they join the league, one, be a team that spends money for a good lineup, and then two, is contending for the title, probably, assuming that that lineup is good.
Yeah, you could easily make the argument that if they were popular as an ERL team, imagine how popular they're going to be as an LEC team, right? That could be their
Exactly.
line of thinking.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of French fans and players that are already heavily invested in the LEC. There's a ton of French players that people like. Shout out Exakick. That guy's cool. But they'd be the third most popular team in that league. Easy. I Charles Barkley guarantee right there.
I just want to make sure real quick. There was no rumors of TSM just buying the
I
slot.
mean, I don't think I would define TSM as a big ERL team, so
Sure, I just mean like it was only a big ERL team. There was no other.
not that I saw at least.
Just want to clarify because there's been those rumors in the past. I'm just joking, of course. Um,
Back to the NA side of things.
okay.
Enero, the general manager of Golden Guardians, former head coach, did an interview with Travis Gafford not too long ago. And one of the talking points that they had on that was the fact that Champions Queue has sort of quietly fallen over and died without a lot of people paying too much attention to it. Part of that is probably because of the delay of the summer split and whatnot, but I think everybody unfortunately saw this coming when Champions Queue wasn't as popular as maybe people expected it to be after the first couple weeks. The novelty of it all sort of fell off, and there seemed to be a lot of pushback from the players, even though they were getting everything that they wanted.
I drank the Kool-Aid when Champions Queue first got announced. Was it last year or 2 years ago? Whenever it was,
A
I
year
drank
and
the
a half ago,
Kool-Aid.
something like that.
I thought that this was such a good thing. I thought players were going to use it. How naive I was. I am not surprised by this. Obviously, not anymore, right?
Me
Like
neither.
it just sucks.
Yeah. And I mean, they didn't really talk about it from the EU side of things, but I just did a little bit of searching on Reddit and Twitter, and it seems like EU Champions Queue is in a similar spot. One, because they have similar, or at least the pros have similar issues with the NA style of things, where there's too many amateur players, and at least one of the bigger issues in the LEC as opposed to North America is that the time slots aren't necessarily favorable because they're very late after the scheduled scrims end and it's not open for very long. So I do think that the on the EU side of things, there are different topics that are causing the downfall of it over there. And I guess the last thing that I wonder is if Champions Queue is going to be something that gets utilized for Worlds in the near future when it may be. I think unlikely that it gets use over in the East when the Worlds is going to be in China and Korea, because I think everybody would argue that when you're over there, you can play Korean solo queue, and that
It's just not needed.
is probably equivalent. But I would hope that the infrastructure is in place for when Worlds does come back to NA, or when Worlds is in Europe, because a lot of the Eastern pros do voice their opinions about how poor the solo queue quality is there, and if they can at least utilize Champions Queue, then there's a positive in that.
Yeah. I think they will use it for Worlds if it's in NA or EU. Maybe they'll use it in Korea. I just like you said, it doesn't seem like they need that.
Yeah, they don't need it. And then last
What
up,
else?
Berserker, he did an interview with Ashley Kang not too long ago, and one of the main talking points that they had in that was about the Korean players whom claim that NA is so difficult because the solo queue is so bad and whatnot, and Berserker seemed to be refuting those claims.
He's just calling people out. Like and I respect that. He's straight up saying that like there's a lot of people that say they just don't want to play solo queue because they like the solo queue's so bad, and they kind of use that as an excuse to be like lazy. And well, look, you can't say like I can't say with certainty which players are playing enough solo queue and which ones aren't. What I can say is that it's very clear that some players come from Korea and succeed a lot, like Berserker, and there's some players that come from the LCK or LPL or whatever and just don't succeed whatsoever, like Bikla, for example. And one can only theorize that it's probably work ethic related,
Well,
even if we can't
there
say
are
for certainty.
there are prime examples of Koreans who've been in the LCS for quite a long time now, who have maintained,
Impact.
their spot at the top of their respective, ranking in their role, and continue to be on championship level squads year after year. Impact, probably the
Who he?
prime example of it. Hui, another one. Core JJ, Berserker's probably the newest of those. So
Yeah.
the proof is in the pudding here. Like, if you come to NA, yeah, it probably is going to be, the competition's not as strong, and maybe it's an easier path to international competition if that's what you're looking for. But you still got to put in the same work that everyone else is doing, because at the very least, there are these other Koreans in NA who are working harder than they are,
Yeah. Yeah.
and all those ones who are the hardest working and seem to have grinded, they're still here and they're still at the top. There's none of these Korean players right now who are like at the bottom of the barrel, who've been here for longer than a year and a half, who just are lazy and not grinding. We saw a ton of turnover with all those types of players from like season 7 to season 10 ish. We're in the new
Yep.
age. The work
Yeah,
ethic. They're
anyways,
gonna
I
work
like
harder
any
than everybody else, although it's kind of working for TL. So yeah,
kinda sorta. Hard to say.
yeah. I don't think we got a little bit out of order here, but I think that's about it. I don't think I.
That's it, and let's do the game predictions then.
Yeah. Well, I gotta.
Oh, I'm excited for this JNT 250.
Yeah, I've been. The predictions were not kind to me last week. Let's just say.
Oh god, yeah.
I'm trying to think of so I had last week from what I can remember, I had 100 Thieves going 3-0, which didn't happen.
No,
They
you
went like
took
one.
FlyQuest over them.
Oh. Okay, well I had okay, then I think it was FlyQuest so I had going 3-0. I had FlyQuest going 3-0. They went 0-3. I had 100 Thieves going 2-1 and they went 1-2. And then I had some other matches that kind of like a couple of the ones that we picked differently that were pretty close, like Cloud9 and Golden Guardian, or no, not Cloud9 and Golden Guardians. What was it? TL versus NRG. I don't know. Some bullshit with NRG and like Golden Guardians, but they swung your way. So for the audio people, my record as it stands right now is 29-31. I am below 500, so we got to up that thing. And Blue Jay is 34-26, comfortably ahead of me.
Yeah. I don't know if we've ever had that big of a swing in difference. I think I was only 1 win ahead of you last week, and now I'm 5.
For the most part, I think the greatest it's ever been is like 3. I don't think it's ever been more than that.
Yeah.
And
Anyways,
funny,
let's do these.
one thing that you mentioned last week is I wonder if we compare our records to the casters. I think the casters they put some graphic up on Twitter, and a lot of them are actually doing really well. So it's kind
Well,
of the reverse here.
I said that they probably like because I think what I said was our first or second split that we were keeping track, we were fucking smashing them, and I was saying like this split, it feels like we're doing bad, and
Yeah.
they're probably smashing us.
They showed some graphic. I don't remember if it was on Twitter or on the broadcast on Wednesday, but it was like
Hmm.
they were all doing pretty well, and I'm sitting here 29-31.
Oof. Okay, let's speed run these. Let's get through them. We got TSM and Dignitas first game on Wednesday. I am
TSM.
going TSM. Okay, TSM for both.
Oh hell yeah.
EG Golden Guardians. Ooh, I'm going Golden Guardians.
I'm
You gotta go
gonna.
EG if you want to make up some ground. Are you not that kind of guy, or are you?
Nah, I
You
mean
trying to
I
make
don't
up
know.
ground, or
It's hard to say because this is a really close game. I'm gonna go Golden Guardians. I gotta sort of stand by my assessment of the top 3 from the beginning of the
okay?
episode.
FlyQuest NRG. NRG.
I mean, this might have to be one of those moments. Like I gotta pick Fly to catch up. So
Okay.
I mean, I don't
Uh,
have faith in either of those two teams. So FlyQuest, I guess.
I am still mad at NRG, but NRG. Golden Guardians, or excuse me, Cloud9 and Team Liquid. I am gonna
Cloud9,
go Cloud9. 100 Thieves Immortals. 100 Thieves
same. The loss streak must
Immortals.
continue.
Yeah, that'll be 11 in a row if we're right. NRG Dignitas. Oh,
These are.
brother.
I hate this. I'm gonna get so many wrong again. I can already feel it. I'm picking
How can I
Dig.
say
I'm
how
picking
can I
Dig.
say that I'm mad at NRG and then predict them to win their first 2 games?
I'm picking Dig. Regretfully.
I'm going NRG. I think Dig is bad. I mean, obviously they're okay. Anyways, NRG, they're both bad. FlyQuest EG,
EG.
TSM Team Liquid, Team Liquid.
I agree. Team Liquid.
Thought you were gonna follow Insanity there.
Nah, I can't. The top side is gonna be a massacre in that game.
Okay, Cloud9, 100 Thieves, Cloud9,
Cloud9.
Immortals, Golden Guardians, Golden Guardians.
Yes, obviously. Yes.
Don't disappoint me, Golden Guardians. Team Liquid, FlyQuest, Team Liquid.
Yeah, I guess. Team
There's no
Liquid.
way you're gonna take FlyQuest there.
I mean, I got a feeling in my bones that FlyQuest is just gonna go 3-0 this week. I can already see it happening.
Well, maybe I would think it's more likely to go 0-3, but I've been wrong before. Where are we? 100 Thieves TSM?
Yep, I'm gonna go 100 Thieves on this one.
Hmm. I'm stuck here. I'm gonna go TSM.
And then Golden Guardians versus NRG. I'm gonna go Golden Guardians simply because I
Golden
have no faith in
Guardians.
NRG. Evil Geniuses versus Cloud9. I'm gonna go with Cloud9.
Me too. Cloud9, and then Dignitas and Immortals. Does Immortals break the curse?
I mean, I don't think they will, but if we look at the track record, Immortals just dominates Dignitas in head to head.
Immortals is 3-0 versus Dignitas this year. And they will be 3-1. I'm going Dignitas.
I'm going with Dignitas. Yeah, I just can't pick Immortals. I'm sorry.
We gotta let
I
the
can't
loss
do it.
streak ride out, and they gotta get to at least 15 losses in a row, and then I don't care if they tie the record or not. I just want everyone to be excited to watch an Immortals game for the first time in ever.
This will be the low key banger of the week. Dignitas versus Immortals. You heard it here first.
Okay. Base race maybe?
Something. Something's
Okay.
going on, but it's gonna be a
Dig
banger.
Baron base race something. Oh, okay. That's it for this episode. A little bit of a long one. It's been a while since we've had a 2-hour one, I feel like.
Yeah, we've been on the shorter side compared to the entire existence of this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
back to
Uh
2 hour gang. We've officially
yeah.
crossed it. Let's go.
And at least we got our content out. We almost, well, I don't want to say almost didn't get an episode this week, but it was delayed, I suppose. I'm glad we get the content for the Monday people. We hear you guys. I know you guys need that Monday content. So we hope you guys enjoy. If you do enjoy, remember to subscribe, remember to like, comment, let us know what we're crazy about. Also, for those unaware, for those that are new listeners, we are available on other platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, them kind of things. Just look for the Clown Fiesta podcast and you will find us. Uh, Next week, again, we might be late just because we got things going on the weekend. So,
But join the
uh,
Discord, then you'll know exactly when we're going live and how
yeah.
late we're gonna be.
And when we do go live, I will tweet that we're going live as well. So if you want that, follow at BlueJ_GG and follow Jinter as well, JNT250. Follow both of us. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. This has been episode 132 of the Clown Fiesta podcast.